To all you rational thinkers, I am Maggie Liu. Today we're going to dissect the calmest opening move I have ever seen in a game the protagonist speaks only 3 words. Let's see exactly what she said. Before the entire court, the Crown Prince announced that he would marry Liu Yange as Crown Princess. And me, the Crown Princess he had married with all proper rights. He would grant me the position of secondary consort. I set down my phoenix coronet. No need. His expression changed. You reject the respect I give you. The next day an imperial decree arrived. The Crown Prince would be replaced. I was already drinking tea at the new Crown Prince's residence. The wine in the crystal cup swayed 3 times without spilling. Sunday Jining glanced down at the wine, then raised her head toward Xiao Chengge, who was delivering an impassioned speech from the dais. Cheng'en Hall blazed with light. 360 palace lamps illuminated it as brightly as day. Today was the Empress's birthday banquet, and more than 100 tables were filled with imperial clansmen, high ministers, and women from every noble house. Sunday Jining sat at the first table on the eastern side, the Crown Princess's seat. Her phoenix coronet tightened painfully around her scalp. The collar of her court robe constricted her neck, while golden embroidery scratched her collarbones. She had worn these garments for 3 years and never grown accustomed to them. Xiao Chengke stood in the center of the hall wearing the Crown Prince's black ceremonial robes, a white jade belt outlining his tall figure. Candlelight sharpened his handsome features and heroic brows. He had looked the same 3 years ago when she married him standing beneath Chengtian Gate in robes red as fire, peerless in splendor. The entire capital had lined the streets, then declaring the Crown Prince and Crown Princess a talented, beautiful pair made in heaven. Now he once again stood before 10,000 eyes, but not for her. Father Emperor, Mother Empress. Xiao Chengke's strong voice echoed through the hall. Your son has a matter to report today before the imperial clan. The hall quieted. Even the clink of bowls and chopsticks disappeared. The Empress held her teacup, her gaze darkening faintly, and said nothing. Xiao Chengke turned, his eyes passing over the assembled guests to the 3rd table on the west toward Liu Yange. Liu Yange lowered her head, twisting a handkerchief between her fingertips. Her ears reddened and her long lashes trembled. Sunday Jining had seen that expression far too many times. Whenever Xiao Chengke mentioned Liu Yange before her, Liu Yange always looked this way, delicate and pitiful, words hovering unsaid. Your son has long admired Liu Yange, daughter of General Liu. Xiao Chengke's voice rang like metal and stone, every word distinct. Today I ask Father Emperor and Mother Empress to permit me to marry Yangzhe's Crown Princess. The entire hall seemed to freeze. Then whoosh. Whispers surged like boiling water and instantly flooded Chang'en Hall. The Crown Princess was still seated there. The Crown Princess was still seated there in her phoenix coronet and court robes. Sunday Jining felt every gaze stabbed toward her like densely packed needles, piercing her face, neck, and the backs of her hands. She did not move. She even lifted the crystal wine cup before her and took a sip. The liquid was cold as it slid down her throat into her stomach, stirring a chill. Beside her, Kuai clutched her sleeve, knuckles white and hand trembling. Sunday Jining patted Kuai's hand as gently as soothing a frightened cat. As for Jining, at last, Xiao Chengke turned his gaze toward her. His expression was subtle, the corner of his mouth lifted, while his eyes held the downward pity of a rich man tossing copper coins to a beggar. I will marry Yangzhe's Crown Princess. Granting you the position of secondary consort will not dishonor the Sunday family's standing. He spoke calmly and even nodded, as though sincerely believing this to be an immense favor. The whispers grew louder. A suppressed snicker came from a table to the right. Sunday Jining did not need to turn to know its source. Liu Yange's legitimate elder sister, Liu Yanrui, married to the legitimate son of the Vice Minister of Rights, and always eager to see her humiliated. The Sunday family belongs to a mere 5th-rank official. Even becoming secondary consort is marrying far above her station. Liu Yanru failed to keep her voice down, and the words traveled across 3 tables. Indeed, when the imperial decree first arranged the marriage, the entire capital wondered what virtue or ability did the Sunday family possess. Someone agreed. Now His Highness has spoken, proving it clearly. This marriage was never a suitable match. Sunday Jining held a mouthful of wine. then swallowed it slowly. Unsuitable, she had heard that word for 3 years. Xiao Chenqi's gaze remained upon her, awaiting her answer. A trace of impatience even appeared in his expression, like a buyer waiting for a shop assistant to wrap merchandise, certain and permitting no refusal. Jinning, you are an intelligent woman. Xiao Chenqi softened his voice, as though coaxing an unreasonable child. Yang and I love each other, and you have long known it. Though the position of secondary consort is less honored than principal consort, with my protection you will suffer no grievance in the Eastern Palace. He even smiled. Kuiwei's nails dug into Sunday Jinning's wrist. Sunday Jinning felt Kuiwei trembling with rage. She lowered her eyes to the red marks on her wrist and gently removed Kuiwei's hand. Then she rose. The pearls and jade on her phoenix coronet chimed softly. Her court robes trailed across the floor, golden threads shimmering beneath the lights. The entire hall's whispers abruptly ceased the instant she stood. Everyone watched her. Xiao Chenqi lifted one brow, the smile still on his lips. Sunday Jinning raised a hand. Her movement was slow. She reached up and removed the phoenix coronet, a 9-tailed golden phoenix set with pearls and jade, weighing 6 jin and 4 liang. When she first wore it 3 years ago, her neck ached for 3 full days. The coronet landed on the table and overturned a dish of candied fruit with a dull thud. The hall fell utterly silent. Your Highness is correct. Sunday Jinning's voice was not loud, but Cheng'en Hall carried sound exceptionally well, and every word reached every ear with perfect clarity. The Sunday family indeed belongs to a 5th-rank official with little standing and shallow roots. Xiao Chenqi narrowed his eyes faintly, evidently not expecting such cooperation, just as he began to say, therefore, the position of secondary consort Sunday Jinning continued, is more than my Sunday family can accept. The smile froze on Xiao Chenqi's lips. Jinning appreciates your Highness's kindness. Sunday Jinning inclined her body with faultless courtesy and perfect bearing. But no need. She spoke those words as blandly as declining a dish of unappealing sweets. The hall was quiet enough to hear candles crackle. Xiao Chenqi's expression changed. His smile peeled away layer by layer, revealing the cold edges beneath. His jaw tightened and a vein at his temple jumped twice. Sunday Jinning. He used her full name, his voice sinking. Do not reject the respect I give you. The words split the final layer of decorum in the hall like a blade. Someone at the feast gasped. Someone's hand trembled around a wine cup. Samono quietly glanced toward the highest seat, the Emperor. On the dragon throne, the Emperor reclined against the backrest, turning red sandalwood prayer beads in one hand. His expression was indistinct, eyelids half lowered as though dozing or watching a fine performance. Sunday Jinning glanced once at Xiao Chenqi, only once. Then she smiled. It was neither bitter nor cold, but exceedingly faint and light, the smallest curve of her lips, like a crack opening in spring ice. Your Highness believes you gave me respect, she said, but this dignity was never yours to give. She bent and lifted the phoenix coronet rather than replacing it on her head. She held it in both hands and walked toward the dais. Her court robe swept the floor, golden threads drawing a long trail of light. More than 100 pairs of eyes followed her across the hall. She stopped before the Emperor, bent her knees and raised the phoenix coronet over her head. This subject's wife, Sunday Jinning, petitions your Majesty to withdraw the position of Crown Princess. Your Majesty bestowed this phoenix coronet. Today, this subject's wife returns it. She knelt perfectly straight, her back as upright as a sword. A chair overturned behind her. Xiao Chenqi stepped forward, only to be restrained by an imperial clansman beside him. Liu Yang's face went white, her handkerchief crushed in her fist. The Empress set down her teacup with a faint click on the dragon throne. The Emperor's prayer beads stopped. He opened his eyes and looked across the hall toward Xiao Chenqi. The glance was brief, yet Xiao Chenqi froze as though drenched in icy water. The Emperor did not accept the coronet. He spoke only one sentence. The birthday banquet will continue. This matter will be discussed tomorrow. Sunday Jinning kowtowed, rose with the coronet in her arms, and walked step by step out of Cheng'en Hall. Behind her, 100 tables of guests remained deathly silent. Kuiwei hurried after her, eyes red and teeth marks bitten into her lip. My lady. Return and pack our belongings. Sunday Jinning did not slow. Night wind poured into her sleeves, raising gooseflesh along her arms. Take what should be taken. Do not leave so much as one needle belonging to us in the Eastern Palace. Kui froze. My lady means. Sunday Jinning did not turn. Palace lamp shadows alternately brightened and darkened her face. He wants to depose me. The night wind scattered her voice, and only Kui heard the final sentence. That depends on whether he can keep his own seat. When Sunday Jinning returned to the Eastern Palace, the Crown Princess's courtyard was as silent as a dry well. The maids and matrons had somehow heard the news and huddled under the corridor with lowered heads, not daring to speak. 2 third-rank maids whose names she did not know glanced at her and quietly retreated. Sunday Jinning knew what they were thinking. The Crown Princess could not retain her position. The household was about to scatter. Those who understood the times should cling to Liu Yangi now. She could not be bothered with them and went straight into the inner room. Kui closed the door and dropped to her knees with a thud. My lady, Kui's voice trembled. How could His Highness do this? 3 years, 3 whole years. How much have you done for the Eastern Palace, yet he stand and speak? You managed the Eastern Palace household, handled every courtesy for the imperial clan, and arranged every seasonal exchange with court officials. Which festival did you not personally prepare? Does he truly not know who made the memorials in his study look presentable, Kui? Sunday Jinning opened a drawer of her dressing table. Her voice was quiet, but Kui fell silent at once. The table contained little valuable jewelry. Every precious piece appeared on the dowry list, with nothing missing. What she removed was a letter. The envelope had yellowed and its corners curled, as though read many times. Do you know why His Majesty arranged my marriage to Xiao Chenki? Kui froze. Because of Grand Madam Sunday. Sunday Jinning's fingers brushed the writing on the envelope. During the late emperor's final years, when the princes fought for succession and the present emperor was still the 7th prince, he was trapped in the hunting grounds for 3 days and nights. Her tone was even, as though recounting an old event unrelated to herself. Every civil and military official avoided him. My grandmother entered the grounds alone, risked her old life, and dragged him from beneath a rain of arrows. Kui had heard the story, yet every telling made her clench her fists. After His Majesty ascended the throne, he offered grandmother the rank of first-rank noblewoman. She refused. He offered gold, silver, and fertile lands, and she refused those too. Sunday Jinning folded the letter and replaced it. Grandmother spoke only one sentence. May your Majesty remember that the Sunday family has a granddaughter. If she suffers injustice one day, lend her a little support. Tears fell from Kui's eyes. His Majesty remembered for 20 years. The marriage decree was not issued to honor Xiao Chengi. It repaid grandmother's debt. Then will His Majesty intervene? Kui wiped her face. His Highness did this before everyone. Before everyone. Sunday Jinning repeated the words. Her lips curving faintly, she went to the window and pushed it open. Night wind carried the cloying sweetness of osmanthus inside, and the pomegranate tree rustled in the courtyard. Before the entire court and imperial clan, he chose the most foolish possible moment. Kui did not quite understand. Sunday Jinning did not explain. She watched the pomegranate tree. When she married into the palace 3 years ago, it had reached only the windowsill. She personally watered and pruned it, watching it grow inch by inch to the eaves. Xiao Chenki had never noticed the tree. Just as he had never noticed anything she did. My lady, Kui suddenly whispered, there is something this servant never dared tell you. Speak. Last month, a maid serving Liu Yanji came to me. Kui lowered her voice. She offered 50 taels and asked me to report your daily movements. Sunday Jinning did not turn. Did you accept it? No, Kui grew anxious. How could I possibly? You should have. What? Sunday Jinning turned, the faintest smile on her face. Accept the silver, then feed them whatever information you wish. That is called an intelligence channel. Kui's mouth fell open and remained that way for a long time. A knock sounded at the door. Kui jumped and hurried forward. Who is it? Crown Princess. This servant is Little Lai from Chang'an Hall. Eunuch Liu, who serves His Majesty, asked this servant to bring a message. Qiwei looked toward Sunday Jinning, who nodded. The door opened a crack. A small, thin eunuch stood outside with his waist bowed and a note pinched in his hand. Eunuch Liu said, "Please rest peacefully tonight, Crown Princess. The Imperial Study summons you at the hour of the snake tomorrow." Sunday Jinning accepted the note. It held only 4 characters in Eunuch Liu's hand. "His Majesty is furious." Sunday Jinning folded the note and returned it to the young eunuch. "Thank Eunuch Liu for me." After the eunuch left, Qiwei approached. "My lady, His Majesty is furious, but at whom?" Sunday Jinning did not answer. She sat before the dressing table again and removed the hairpins from her coiffure one by one. With each pin, another measure of tension left her shoulders. When she removed the final white jade hairpin, her black hair cascaded over her shoulders. She looked at herself in the bronze mirror. The woman in the mirror was 21. Her features cool and composed, 2 red marks on her cheekbones where the phoenix coronet had pressed. "Qiwei, here. Tell me what expressions will fill the court if the crown prince is replaced tomorrow." Qiwei froze. Sunday Jinning did not wait for an answer. She blew out the candle. In the darkness, she closed her eyes. 3 years. She had spent 3 full years in this Eastern palace. During those years, she arranged 27 imperial clan banquets for Xiao Chenke, without a single mistake. During those years, she drafted 14 memorials for him, their wording so polished that even the Minister of Personnel believed they came from the Crown Prince himself. During those years, she appeased 3 dissatisfied feudatory princes and resolved at least 5 open and hidden conflicts within the imperial clan. And Xiao Chenke, he admired flowers, listened to music, and played chess in Liu Yange's courtyard. Occasionally, he leafed through the papers Sunday Jinning had organized and frowned. "The writing is too small." "Copy it again." She recopied it. He said, "The tea is too hot," and she replaced it. He said, "You need not come to the study every day. Yangi will organize things for me." And she withdrew. She withdrew until there was nowhere left to go. He still complained that she blocked his path. Sunday Jinning opened her eyes in the darkness. She did not shed one tear. She had exhausted her tears during her first year in the Eastern Palace. In the second, she learned to reveal nothing. In the third, she learned to arrange a game without revealing anything. 3 years, she said softly in the darkness. Enough. The next day, the hour of the snake had just arrived, and the bells of Chang'an Hall still echoed among the palace walls when the imperial decree came. Not to the Eastern Palace, but to the court. The decree was proclaimed by Liu Frishan, director of ceremonial and keeper of the imperial seal, an old eunuch who had served beside the emperor for 30 years. Standing on the steps of the throne hall with a bright yellow scroll, his voice was shrill but each word distinct enough to pierce the entire square. By the mandate of heaven, the emperor decrees every civil and military official knelt. Xiao Chenke knelt at the front, his back perfectly straight and even a faint, confident smile on his lips. He was certain Father Emperor would agree he was the legitimate eldest son of impeccable descent and had occupied the Eastern Palace for 8 years. The Sunday family belonged to a mere 5th-rank official, while the Liu family was the household of the Northern Pacification general. Marrying Liu Yange's crown princess was the optimal choice for strengthening the Eastern Palace. Father Emperor was a wise sovereign, and a wise sovereign could not fail to understand this calculation. Crown Prince Chenki lacks virtue. By publicly humiliating the crown princess, he violated decorum and injured ritual law. He is unworthy of the heavy responsibility of heir. Xiao Chenke's smile froze, his lips moved, but no sound emerged. Among the kneeling officials, someone secretly raised his head to look. From this day, he is stripped of the title Crown Prince. Xiao Chenke is reduced to Commandery Prince and shall leave the Eastern Palace for the Western suburban residence. Without summons, he may not enter the capital. Xiao Chenke's knees seemed nailed to the tiles. His entire body went rigid, pupils contracting violently and throat bobbing twice. Liu Fuquan did not stop. Second Prince Xiao Chenggeng, intelligent and studious, respectful and modest, is hereby created Crown Prince and shall take possession of the Eastern Palace today. The orderly clash of armor sounded outside the hall. The Imperial Guards had already changed posts. Crown Princess Sunday Jinning is virtuous and capable in management. She shall remain Crown Princess without replacement. Lu Fuquan closed the decree, bent, and offered it forward in both hands. Not toward Xiao Chengke, but 3 paces behind him. Summono knelt there. Xiao Chenggeng 20 years old and 2 years younger than Xiao Chengke. He wore plain blue everyday robes without one ornament beyond his rank. He knelt toward the rear among the officials, the second prince, born to a concubine whose mother had died early and who had always remained inconspicuous in the palace. Now every gaze turned toward him. Xiao Chenggeng's expression was calm. He extended both hands to receive the decree and kowtowed in gratitude. His movements were measured, and even his breathing remained steady as though he had known all along. Impossible, Xiao Chengke's voice exploded. He snapped up his head and half rose from his knees, only for Imperial Guards on either side to press down his shoulders. Father Emperor, your son is the legitimate eldest, the Eastern Palace. The Imperial decree has been issued. Lu Fengquan's voice was quiet, yet it overwhelmed Xiao Chengke's roar. Commandery Prince Xiao, accept your loss. Your loss. The words stabbed precisely into Xiao Chengke's chest. His face changed from crimson to livid, then from livid to nearly transparent white. His lips moved as he struggled to speak, only to find his throat gripped by an invisible hand. Low whispers sounded behind him. Last night's affair, as expected. His Highness, the Crown Prince. No, the Commandery Prince humiliated the Crown Princess before everyone. His Majesty saw it all. Though the Sunday family's standing is modest, Grand Madam Sunday's favor from years ago. Hush, say no more. Xiao Chengke spun around. His gaze swept across the officials like a wounded beast seeking prey. Those who had whispered instantly bowed their heads and fell silent as winter cicadas. Xiao Chenggeng? Xiao Chengke gritted his teeth and spoke the name one word at a time. Xiao Chenggeng raised his head and looked at him. Their gazes met. In those eyes, Xiao Chengke saw something utterly unfamiliar, not triumph, mockery, or even pity. It was a calm, almost gentle regard, as though observing the end of a performance unrelated to himself. Xiao Chengke clenched his fist until the joints cracked. The Imperial Guard tightened his grip upon Xiao Chengke's shoulder. Commandery Prince Xiao, please. They pulled him upright. His feet dragged across the tiles with a dull scraping sound. When he passed Xiao Chenggeng, he paused for 1 second. You believe you won? His voice was low enough for only the two of them. Xiao Chenggeng did not answer. He merely shifted slightly aside and cleared the path. Outside the hall, the sunlight was blinding. The Imperial Guards escorted Xiao Chengke down the steps, every pace like treading upon a blade. He still wore the Crown Prince's ceremonial robes, but from that moment they no longer belonged to him. The Eastern Palace gates closed behind him. Closed forever. When the news reached the Eastern Palace's inner residence, Liu Yang was applying a floral ornament before the mirror. Her courtyard was called Yanhua Residence, a name personally bestowed by Xiao Chengke, meaning beautiful and captivating. What? In the bronze mirror, not one piece of the floral ornament had adhered to her face. The rouge box fell to the table, rolled twice, then dropped to the floor. Red paste left a horrifying streak across the blue stone tiles. Number. Impossible. She rose, overturning the chair. How could His Highness, how could His Majesty? The maid who brought the message knelt with her head lowered. Miss Liu, the decree said, leave the Eastern Palace today. Every old retainer of the former Crown Prince, who does not belong to the new Crown Prince's household, must depart before noon. Liu Yang's knees weakened, and she caught the edge of the dressing table. Her nails scraped the wood with a creak. What about Sunday Jinning? Her voice was rough. What did the decree say of her? The maid paused. Crown Princess Sunday Jinning is virtuous and capable in management. She shall remain Crown Princess without replacement. Liu Yang's fingers slipped from the dressing table. She collapsed to the floor, her skirt spreading into a pool of brocade. Remain Crown Princess. She repeated the words through clenched teeth. She is still Crown Princess, only the Crown Prince has been replaced. The maid dared not answer. Rapid footsteps and the sound of moving property came from outside Yanhua Residence. The eunuchs had already begun clearing it. At that same moment, Sunday Jinning sat in the central red sandalwood chair of the Eastern Palace's main courtyard while Kuai ground ink beside her. A new administrative register lay open on the table. She raised her pen and wrote the first line, Eastern Palace matters for taking possession. Kuai leaned closer to read, her voice carrying disbelief. My lady, we do not need to move, number. Then when will the new crown prince arrive? Sunday Jinning dipped her brush and continued writing. Why the hurry? The tea has just been brewed. Xiao Chenggang entered the Eastern Palace at the 3:15 of noon. There was no grand procession. Only one retainer accompanied him, a young man, likewise dressed in plain blue, with ordinary features and silent steps. A new group of imperial guards stood at the gates and dropped to one knee the instant they saw him. Greetings, Your Highness, the Crown Prince. Xiao Chenggang waved a hand and entered. His gaze swept across the courtyard. It had been cleaned perfectly without one leaf upon the stone steps. New lanterns already hung under the corridors, and even the old plaque above the gate had been removed to await another. Highly efficient, too efficient. Xiao Chenggang looked toward the main courtyard. A lamp burned there. Your Highness, the Crown Princess is in the main courtyard. The eunuch at the gate bowed and pointed the way. Xiao Chenggang walked toward it. When he opened the courtyard gate, the scent of osmanthus rushed over him. 2 golden osmanthus trees stood in full bloom, their branches bent beneath countless tiny golden flowers. The main room's door stood half open. He stopped outside and knocked twice upon the frame. Enter, the voice was quiet and unhurried, carrying the composure of a host receiving a guest. Xiao Chenggang pushed open the door. A woman sat directly opposite in a red sandalwood chair. She wore plain green robes without jewels or a phoenix coronet. Her hair was simply arranged and secured by one white jade pin. Documents covered the desk before her, with a cup of tea beside them. Steam rose and dispersed through the afternoon light. It was the first time Xiao Chenggang had seen Sunday Jinning at close range. At previous palace banquets, she always sat beside Shankei in her phoenix coronet and court robes, eyes modestly lowered and presence as thin as a shadow. Now she raised her head and met his gaze directly, showing no intention of bowing. It was not arrogance, but the natural air of I have sat here for 3 years, and you are the newcomer. Xiao Chenggang suddenly found her interesting. Crown Princess, he said quietly. Your Highness. Sunday Jinning inclined her head. The tea was freshly brewed. Longjing, would Your Highness care to taste it? Xiao Chenggang sat opposite and lifted the cup. The tea was clear jade green and just warm enough to drink. He sipped, his brow shifting faintly. Excellent tea. Your Highness flatters me. I have received palace tribute for 3 years and at least learned how to brew it. Xiao Chenggang set down the cup and glanced at her. The Crown Princess does not appear surprised. Sunday Jinning lifted her own cup. Nor does Your Highness. They held each other's gaze for 3 seconds. Then Xiao Chenggang smiled. It was neither a courteous smile nor the lofty charity Xiao Chengge had shown. One corner of his mouth lifted faintly, while genuine, almost admiring light gleamed in his eyes. I heard the Crown Princess managed the household for the former Crown Prince for 3 years. Merely my duty. 27 imperial clan banquets, 14 memorials, and 5 negotiations with feudatory princes over 3 years. Xiao Chenggang tapped the table twice. The former Crown Prince believed all of those achievements belonged to him. Correct. Sunday Jinning did not answer. She lowered her head to drink, her lashes casting a small shadow above the cup's rim. The Crown Princess need not be modest. Xiao Chenggang leaned against the chair and spoke as casually as discussing the weather. His Majesty's decree contained one phrase, capable in management. Father Emperor added those 4 characters in his own hand. They were not in the original draft. Sunday Jinning's fingers tightened faintly around her cup. Xiao Chenggang caught the momentary movement. Therefore, he said slowly, His Majesty saw everything the Crown Princess accomplished with perfect clarity. The main room was silent for several breaths. Wind entered through the half-open window and stirred the documents on the table with a rustle. Did Your Highness come today to discuss household administration or to test me? Sunday Jinning set down her cup and met his gaze. Xiao Chenggang lifted a brow. Both. Then I will discuss administration first. Sunday Jinning pushed the papers toward him. The Eastern Palace has 67 servants. 31 retainers of the former crown prince have been dismissed. The remaining 36 were hired by me during the past 3 years and work well. If your highness distrusts them, you may make other arrangements. Xiao Chenggang glanced through the papers, rosters, accounts, storeroom details and plans of every courtyard, classified, orderly and neatly written. He turned 2 pages and closed them. They will remain. I have no reason to replace people the crown princess considers useful. Sunday Jinning nodded, neither surprised nor falsely refusing. Then the second matter, she paused. Rapid footsteps came from outside. Your Highness, Crown Princess. A eunuch stumbled inside and dropped to his knees. Commandery, Prince Xiao requests an audience outside the palace gates. Xiao Chenggang and Sunday Jinning looked toward the door simultaneously. He says, the eunuch swallowed. He says he wants to see the crown princess. Sunday Jinning tapped the table twice. What condition is he in? The eunuch hesitated. Commandery Prince Xiao has red eyes and disordered clothes. It looks as though he ran all the way here. How many men did he bring? Only himself. The imperial guard stopped him, but he refused to leave and is kneeling outside the palace gates. Sunday Jinning raised her eyes toward Xiao Chenggang, holding his tea at ease. Xiao Chenggang said, the crown princess's former husband has come. The crown princess may decide whether to receive him. Beside them, Qiwei nearly choked. The corner of Sunday Jinning's mouth moved into the faintest curve. I will see him, she stood and straightened her collar. You may drink your tea here. Xiao Chenggang raised his cup toward her. Outside the palace gates, Xiao Chenggang knelt upon the blue stone steps. His crown prince's ceremonial robes had been stripped away. He now wore an ordinary ink-black gown of fine material, but without the dignity of the heir, it only made him appear disheveled. Half his coiffure had fallen, loose hair clinging to his temples. The hard edges of the steps pressed into his knees until pain became numbness, yet he did not rise. He was waiting. The imperial guards behind him watched as though observing a show. The former crown prince, once all-powerful and commanding wind and rain, now knelt at the new crown prince's gate like an impoverished relative turned away while collecting a debt. The palace gate opened. Sunday Jinning emerged. She wore no coronet or court robe, only plain green garments and the white jade hairpin. Standing at the highest step, she looked down upon Xiao Chengke kneeling below. From this angle, once he had stood above while she knelt beneath. Now the positions were reversed. What instruction does Commandery Prince Xiao have for me? Xiao Chengke snapped up his head. He saw Sunday Jinning's face calm and clean, without triumph, mockery, or even hatred. He found that harder to bear than a sneer. Sunday Jinning. His voice was hoarse, as though filled with gravel. You knew this would happen, did you not? I did not. You lie. Xiao Chengke slapped the tiles, and rose, stumbled 1 step, and was stopped by the guards. He glared at her between them, eyes threaded red. You deliberately rejected me at the banquet, and deliberately returned the coronet to Father Emperor so that what? Sunday Jinning's voice was as bland as water. Xiao Chengke, what ability do you believe I possess to make His Majesty depose a crown prince? The words caught in his throat. His mouth hung open as his chest heaved. Indeed, the Sunday family belonged to a 5th-rank official, and Sunday Jinning was a woman confined to the inner palace. How could she influence imperial succession? It was you, Sunday Jinning said, 1 deliberate word at a time. Before the entire court and imperial clan, you humiliated the crown princess personally created by imperial decree. You tore apart the dignity His Majesty gave you, threw it to the ground and trampled it yourself. You wanted to replace the crown princess. Very well, you could have discussed it privately with His Majesty, followed the proper process, and submitted a memorial requesting a decree. There were 100 dignified methods. You chose the most foolish one. Xiao Chengke's face alternated red and white. You announced it publicly and offered me the position of secondary consort like charity. What do you think His Majesty saw how deeply you loved Liu Yange, or how little you respected imperial authority? The final sentence drove into Xiao Chengke's chest. Like a blade, his pupils contracted sharply. Number, that was not. You only believed that because you were crown prince, everything beneath heaven belonged to you. You could take whatever you wanted and discard whatever you wished. Sunday Jinning's voice never rose or fell. Every word was as steady as a judgment being read. Including me. Xiao Chenqi's lips trembled. He suddenly lunged forward, but was tightly restrained by the guards. Jinning, I was wrong. I should never have spoken those words in public. You must beg Father Emperor for me. You are the Crown Princess. Go and beg. I am the new Crown Prince's Crown Princess. The words drenched Xiao Chenghe from head to foot like icy water. His body stopped. The expression on his face shattered and fell away piece by piece, first anger, then resentment, then confusion, and finally an empty, almost stupefied fear. What did you say? The decree stated it clearly. Crown Princess Sunday Jinning shall remain Crown Princess without replacement. Sunday Jinning lowered her eyes. The Crown Prince was replaced. The Crown Princess was not. Therefore, I am now Xiao Chenggeng's Crown Princess. Xiao Chengqi's knees weakened. The guards released him, and he collapsed directly onto the ground. Number, he murmured, his voice rising from a deep well. Number. Impossible. This is wrong. Sunday Jinning stood on the steps without one ripple in her gaze. The wind blew and lifted the corner of her robe. Xiao Chengke. She spoke his name for the final time. 3 years ago you also knelt on these steps. Only then, you were receiving the marriage decree, you smiled and told me, Sunday Jinning, I will not treat you unfairly. She paused. Half of what you said was correct. You truly did not treat me unfairly. You never treated me as human at all. With that, she turned and left. The palace gate closed before Xiao Chengke. The dull impact echoed across the empty steps. Xiao Chengke sat motionless upon the cold stone. Sunlight covered him, yet he trembled. When Liu Yangish was driven from the Eastern Palace, she carried only 2 trunks. Strictly speaking, she was not driven out. The decree did not name her, but when the eunuchs cleared the former Crown Prince's retainers, Yanhua residence was emptied first. Miss Liu, a carriage is waiting at the rear gate. Liu Yange clutched the bronze lock of her trunk, her knuckles white. She raised her head toward the main courtyard. It was brightly lit. Maids hurried back and forth, moving new furnishings. Sunday Jinning, the woman she had trampled for 3 years, still sat securely in the main courtyard. No, not merely sat there. She sat in the new Crown Prince's main courtyard with the title of Crown Princess. Liu Yangsh bit her lower lip until blood appeared. Go, she released it, her voice trembling. She entered the carriage. As the curtain fell, she gave one final look at the Eastern Palace plaque. A new plaque was already hanging. She closed her eyes, nails digging into her palms. At General Liu's estate, Liu Yange's father, Liu Zheng, sat inside his study. The tea before him had gone cold 3 times without being touched. Father. Liu Yange knelt before him, her voice hoarse. His Highness has been deposed, and your daughter, you still dare speak. A teacup shattered on the floor, porcelain fragments scattering across Liu Yange's skirt. Liu Zheng's hand trembled. He was the Northern Pacification General, a man with 20 years of battlefield service, military merit, and court connections. He feared neither war nor blood, but he feared one word: decree. Half a lifetime of foundations I fought to build. Liu Zheng pointed until his finger stopped an inch from her nose. You squandered all of it at one birthday banquet. His Highness said. He is Commandery Prince Xiao now. A vein jumped at Liu Zheng's temple. A deposed Commandery Prince. If you remain bound to him, does the Liu family have any road to survive? Tears fell from Liu Yangji's eyes. Father Chenqi and I do not speak his name. Liu Zheng slammed the desk. Do you know how many people at morning court mocked the Liu family today? Those slippery old men at the Ministry of War grinned from ear to ear. General Liu, your honored daughter is truly fortunate. The Crown Prince was willing to depose his own princess for her. Pity the Crown Prince was deposed as well. Liu Yang's shoulders jerked. You believe the Crown Prince announced his intention to marry you because he loved you so deeply. Liu Zheng lowered his voice, forcing every word through his teeth. He was using you, using the Liu family's military command to challenge his majesty. He was telling the entire court, I, Xiao Chenke, dare replace even the crown princess appointed by imperial decree. Now see who truly commands this court. Liu Yangi stared blankly. His Majesty did not depose a crown prince. He deposed a disobedient son. After saying it, Liu Zhang seemed to deflate and fell back into his chair. The study remained silent for a long time. Liu Yang knelt until her knees went numb. Tears blurred her sight, leaving everything indistinct. Father. Her voice was barely breath. Then what should I do? Liu Zhang closed his eyes. From this day, go nowhere. The Liu family, I will find a way. His hand pressed against the desk, fingertips still trembling faintly. At the same time, in the Eastern Palace's main courtyard, the retainer beside Xiaocheng, the plain-faced young man named Jirong, stood under the corridor holding a note. Your Highness, news has arrived from Grand Madam Sunday. Xiao Chenggong remained seated over documents without raising his head. Speak. Grand Madam Sunday submitted her palace token early this morning, but did not go to the imperial study. She visited the Empress Dowager's signing palace. Xiao Chenggong's hand paused. What did the Empress Dowager say? The Empress Dowager held Grand Madam Sunday's hand and said, Old sister, your granddaughter has suffered. I will seek justice for you. Xiao Chenggong slowly set down the document. And then the Empress Dowager ordered a casket of jewelry for the new Crown Princess's bridal adornment. Though the Crown Princess has not changed, the Crown Prince has, so she calls it a new marriage. The corner of Xiao Chenggong's mouth moved. The Empress Dowager is supporting the Sunday family, Jirong said quietly. On the surface, she rewards jewelry. In truth, she tells the court that the Sunday family's protector is not merely His Majesty, but the Empress Dowager as well. Xiao Chenggong rose and went to the window. Outside stood the 2 golden osmanthus trees. Sunday Jinning spent 3 years in the Eastern Palace, he said slowly, and Grand Madam Sunday never once entered the palace to request a favor. When Xiao Chengge neglected her and favored Liu Yange, the Sunday family did not say one word. Correct. Silent for 3 years. Then with her first request, she went directly to the Empress Dowager. Xiao Chenggong tapped the window lattice twice. What does that tell us? Jirong considered that Grand Madam Sunday was waiting for Xiao Chengge to commit his own folly. No, Xiao Chenggong's gaze shifted toward a point in the courtyard. The main room's light shone through the paper window, revealing the silhouette of someone seated upright. It tells us her granddaughter was waiting too. His eyes remained on the silhouette for several seconds before withdrawing. Jirong, this subordinate is here. Investigate one matter. Of every memorial Xiao Chengge submitted and every state affair he handled over these 3 years, how many passed through Sunday Jinning's hands? Jirong departed with the order. Xiao Chenggong returned to the table and opened a document. He turned 2 pages, then closed it again. He lifted his cup. The Longjing Sunday Jinning brewed had gone completely cold. He still took a sip. The cold tea left a faint sweetness in his throat. After nightfall, Sunday Jinning wrote beneath the lamplight. Kuiwei entered with a late meal, a bowl of osmanthus lotus seed soup and 2 small dishes. My lady, eat something. You have worked all day. Sunday Jinning set down her pen and rubbed her wrist. Kuiwei, ask whether Liu Yange has reached home. Kuiwei froze. My lady is still concerned for her. Not concern. Sunday Jinning took a spoonful of soup. The lotus seeds were soft, and the clean sweetness of osmanthus dissolved across her tongue. Guarding against her. Guarding? Liu Yange returned to General Liu's estate. Liu Zhang is not a man who waits helplessly for death. He holds military command and has court connections. What he fears most now is being dragged down by Xiao Chengge. Then what will he do? Sunday Jinning blew the steam from the bowl. Either cut off his tail to survive and sever his connection to Xiao Chengge, or she paused. Take a desperate risk. Huaiwei shuddered. My lady means General Liu might rebel, not rebellion, but he will certainly muddy the waters. Sunday Jinning set down the bowl. Liu Zhang has cultivated the court for years, and his students and old connections fill all 6 ministries. He need only release several rumors against the new crown prince to create considerable trouble for us. What do we do? Sunday Jinning gazed into the darkness outside. The golden osmanthus trees rustled in the wind as though people whispered beneath them. "There is no hurry," she said. "Let him move first. How can we strike the snake before it leaves its hole?" On the third day after the new crown prince took possession of the Eastern Palace, the court erupted. The cause was a memorial of impeachment. Wei Daoyuan, assistant censor-in-chief of the censorate, joined 3 censors in accusing the new crown prince, Xiao Chenggong, of shallow virtue, insufficient learning, lowly concubine birth, and unfitness for the position of heir. The memorial was fiercely worded and stretched 3,000 characters, moving from Xiao Chenggong's birth and maternal clan to his academic record and lack of achievement at court. The most glaring words were in the final paragraph. "This subject dares speak plainly. Deposing the elder for the younger and the legitimate for the concubine born has been a grave taboo since antiquity. Though Commandery Prince Xiao erred, his crime did not warrant deposition. We humbly beg your majesty to withdraw the decree and restore Commandery Prince Xiao as crown prince, thereby securing the state." The emperor read the memorial and set it aside without expression. "Does anyone else wish to speak?" The court remained silent for 3 seconds. Then Russell's 17 officials dropped to their knees together. "This subject concurs. This subject implores your majesty to reconsider. Deposing the legitimate for a concubine-born son may injure the state's foundation." Xiao Chenggong stood on the eastern side of the court, the new crown prince's position. His expression was calm, nearly undisturbed. His hands hung at his sides, his thumb lightly rubbing the second joint of his forefinger, a small habit when thinking 17 men. He ran through the list in his mind. 4 were Liu Zhang's former subordinates. 3 were distant relations of the empress, Xiao Chenqi's maternal clan. 6 had taken silver from the Liu family, while 4 were opportunists swept along by the tide. He opened his mouth to speak. Enough. The emperor did not raise his voice, but it silenced all the clamour. On the dragon throne, the emperor's hand pressed against the armrest, his knuckles faintly white. "Since when did our edicts require you to urge us to reconsider?" The backs of all 17 men stiffened at once. "Wei Daoyuan, this subject is here. How many years have you served in the censorate?" "In answer to your majesty, 11 years. 11 years. The emperor nodded. "How many people have you impeached in those 11 years? Sweat broke out on Wei Daoyuan's forehead. Petitions of impeachment, large and small. More than 200 in total. And how many of those were submitted because someone paid you?" Wei Daoyuan's face went white in an instant. "We will not settle old accounts with you." The emperor rose. The hem of his dragon robe swept over the floor with a faint rustle. "But as for the memorial you submitted today, we have one question for you. Who told you to write it?" Wei Daoyuan's teeth chattered. "Your Majesty, this subject I did it out of Lu Fuquan. This servant is here. Search Lord Wei's residence. See if there are any receipts or the like in his study." Wei Daoyuan's knees gave way and he collapsed flat on the floor. "Mercy, Your Majesty, mercy. It was General Liu. General Liu sent someone to find this subject and told me to." "That will do." The emperor waved a hand as if shooing away a fly. His gaze swept over the 17 men kneeling on the floor. "All of you think carefully before you speak again. We give you 3 days to write your own petitions confessing your offences. Anyone who has not submitted one after 3 days need not bother. Simply take off your official robes." All 17 men knocked their heads against the floor in unison. The other officials in the court hunched their shoulders, scarcely daring to breathe. The emperor turned and took 2 steps, then suddenly stopped again. "Chenggong, this son is here. What do you make of today's affair?" Every civil and military official in the court turned to look at Xiao Chenggong. Xiao Chenggong was silent for 2 seconds. "In answer to Father Emperor, I believe Censor Wei was not entirely wrong." A collective gasp swept through the court. The emperor's brows shifted slightly. "Oh, it is true that this son possesses modest learning and shallow foundations. That some at court object to my abrupt appointment as crown prince is only natural." His voice was neither servile nor arrogant, but he lifted his head slightly. "Whether I can be a good crown prince is not determined by my birth, nor by how many people at court voice their support. It is determined by what I accomplish." He paused. I ask Father Emperor to grant me time. Those who are unconvinced, I will convince them. The court remained silent for a long while. Then the Emperor smiled. It was the smile of an old hunter seeing a young cub grow its fangs, a trace of satisfaction, mingled with expectation. Good. The Emperor left the single word behind and turned away. After court was dismissed, Xiao Chenggong returned to the Eastern Palace. When he entered, Sunday Jining was already waiting in the main courtyard. 2 cups of tea stood on the table, one hot, one warm. The hot cup was before her. The warm one was at his place. He sat down, lifted the tea, and took a sip. The temperature was just right. Have you heard what happened at court today? I have. Sunday Jining poured herself more tea. Wei Daoyuan's impeachment, Liu Zheng was behind it. You aren't surprised. I told Kuai Wei 3 days ago that Liu Zheng would muddy the waters. Sunday Jining set down the teapot, but he moved sooner than I expected, which means he is anxious. Xiao Chenggong looked at her. About what? About distancing himself from Xiao Chengge. Sunday Jining traced a circle on the table with her finger. Impeaching you was only a pretext. His true purpose was to show His Majesty that he, Liu Zheng, still has influence and is still useful. He is not trying to vindicate Xiao Chengge. He is leaving himself a way out. Xiao Chenggong's eyes narrowed slightly. You mean Liu Zheng does not care whether Xiao Chengge can regain his position? What he cares about is whether the Liu family will still have a way to survive once the new crown prince takes power. She raised her head, meeting Xiao Chenggong's eyes. So this impeachment was a test. He was watching how you would respond. If you flew into a rage and struck back, he would know you lacked confidence and could keep applying pressure. If you remained composed, then he would know I had solid ground beneath my feet. Xiao Chenggong finished. Sunday Jining nodded. Your answer at court today, neither servile nor arrogant, yielding in order to advance. It was very good. It was the first time she had openly praised him, holding his teacup. Xiao Chenggong's lips curved slightly. Does the crown princess mean I passed today? Sunday Jining did not take the bait. Liu Zheng will make a second move next. She rose and walked to the window. His connections at court are not limited to visible men like Wei Daoyuan. He has hidden agents too. You know who they are? Sunday Jining was silent for a second. During my 3 years in the Eastern Palace, I watched all of Xiao Chengge's dealings. Her voice was calm. His people, which belonged to the Liu family, which to the Empress, and which merely followed the prevailing wind, I have a list. Xiao Chenggong put down his teacup. When did you compile it? Over 3 years. 2 words. Xiao Chenggong looked at her back, silhouetted against the light outside the window. Her shoulders straight, her waist slender, the white jade hairpin in her coiffure glowing softly in the light. He suddenly recalled the information Jirong had uncovered of the memorials Xiao Chengge had submitted over the past 3 years. More than half had been drafted or revised by Sunday Jining. Everything involved in the daily operation of the Eastern Palace, from grand clan banquets to the servants' grain rations, had passed through her hands. In Xiao Chengge's shadow, quietly and without drawing attention, she had woven an enormous net. And from beginning to end, Xiao Chengge had never noticed the thread beneath his feet, the other end of which was held in her hand. The list is here. Sunday Jining took a thin roll of paper from her sleeve and placed it on the table. Xiao Chenggong picked it up and unrolled it. There were not many names on the list, 37. After each name was a detailed web of relationships, vulnerabilities, and possible strategies for dealing with them. The handwriting was neat, the analysis precise. He read it for a long time. Then he rolled the list closed and looked up at her. Sunday Jining. For the first time, he called her by her full name. These past 3 years, he paused, choosing his words. They must have been very hard for you. Sunday Jining turned around. She glanced at him. Only once. Then she smiled, not the faint, courteous smile she usually wore, but one that rose from the bottom of her heart, touched with bitterness and relief. They were not hard, she said, only cold. The word was very soft, falling into the quiet main room like a leaf into a deep pool. Xiao Chenggong said nothing. He rose, walked to her side, and reached out to close the window. Then from now on, it will not be cold. Sunday Jining froze for a second. Then she turned her face away, not letting him see her expression. Your Highness's tea has gone cold. I will have Kuai brew a fresh pot. She hurried out of the room. Xiao Chenggong stood before the window, his hand still resting on the frame. He lowered his eyes to his hand. His fingertips felt faintly hot, as though he had touched a piece of jade warmed by sunlight. That night, Jirong returned with the information he had found. Your Highness, this subordinate has finished investigating. Tell me, of the 39 memorials Xiao Chengke submitted over the past 3 years, 23 were originally drafted by the Crown Princess. She wrote 7 of them entirely herself and substantially revised 16 based on Xiao Chengke's drafts. Xiao Chenggung's fingers stilled on the tabletop. Also the annual festival gift lists, social exchanges and visits among imperial relatives were all managed personally by the Crown Princess. There is a hidden compartment in Xiao Chengke's study containing a chart of relationships among the officials at court compiled by the Crown Princess. It is even more detailed than the Ministry of Personnel's records. Did Xiao Chengke know any of this? Number Jirong's voice held a trace of undisguised astonishment. He thought those well-received memorials proved that his own writing had improved. He even boasted to Liu Yangyi, I have grown increasingly adept at handling affairs of state lately. Xiao Chenggung closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. A woman upheld her husband's dignity for 3 years and served as the unseen force behind his achievements for 3 years. And that husband declared in public that she was unworthy. Jirong fell silent. Xiao Chenggong opened his eyes. Jirong, this subordinate is here. Starting tomorrow, whoever the Crown Princess wishes to employ and whatever she wishes to do, the entire Eastern Palace is to cooperate fully. She need not seek my approval. Jirong acknowledged the order. And one more thing. What else does your Highness command? Have a brazier taken to the Crown Princess's room. Jirong paused. It is only autumn. There is no need yet. Xiao Chenggong glanced at him. Jirong shut his mouth and turned to carry out the order. Liu Zheng's second move came even sooner than Sunday Jinning had expected. 5 days later, an anonymous letter was delivered to 13 tea houses, taverns, and bookshops across the capital. Its contents were simple song. The new Crown Prince Xiao Chenggung's birth mother had not died of illness but had been poisoned. The mastermind, the current empress, like a pebble cast into a still lake, the letter sent ripples across the entire capital within a single day. Although the storytellers in the tea houses did not dare say so outright. Every word and insinuation suggested that the new crown prince had risen to avenge his birth mother. Drunken patrons in taverns were blunter still. The empress killed Lady Song. The emperor felt guilty, so he deposed the empress's own son and installed Lady Song's son instead. The street rumors were half true and half false, but enormously destructive. When word reached the Eastern Palace, Sunday Jinning was reviewing the account books. Kui Wei rushed in. My lady outside, I know. Sunday Jinning closed the account book. The rumors. What are we going to do? The whole capital is talking about it. Do not panic. Sunday Jinning rose. Where is Xiao Chenggong? His Highness went to the Imperial study early this morning and has not returned. Sunday Jinning picked up the list on the table, the one she had compiled before, and turned to the 23rd name. Heroine, governor of the capital, a fellow examination graduate of Liu Zheng's. Her fingertip rested on the name, for rumors to spread from tea houses and taverns. The first man who should intervene is the governor of the capital. If he does not, it is either because he cannot or because he will not. My lady thinks he will not. Sunday Jinning rolled up the list. Heroine owes the Liu family a favor and dares not offend Liu Zheng. But he does not dare openly help Liu Zheng either, so he chose the safest course, pretending to hear and see nothing. She walked to the door. Kuai Wei, prepare the carriage. Where are we going? To do something Xiao Chengke never did in 3 years. Sunday Jinning did not go to the capital prefecture office. She went somewhere no one would have expected, Signing Palace. The Empress Dowager was 67 that year and still hale and vigorous. Every day she unfailingly did 3 things. Recite sutras, drink tea and play with her bird. When Sunday Jinning arrived, the Empress Dowager was teasing her minor bird. At the sight of Sunday Jinning entering, the minor flapped its wings and cried, "The Crown Princess is here. The Crown Princess is here." The Empress Dowager laughed, the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes bunching together. This creature certainly knows people. Your Majesty taught it well. Sunday Jinning sat beside the Empress Dowager and personally poured her a cup of tea. The Empress Dowager took the tea, had a sip, and set down the cup. Girl, you did not come to see this old woman just to play with a bird, did you? Nothing escapes your Majesty. Speak then, this old woman has also heard the wild talk outside. The Empress Dowager's gaze sharpened, her silver brows lowering slightly. Summoning claims Lady Song was killed by the Empress. What does your Majesty think? The Empress Dowager gave a cold laugh. Lady Song died of illness. The Imperial Medical Bureau's case notes and prescription records state it in black and white. The Empress and Lady Song scarcely met a few times. What grievance could there have been between them? This rumor, they did not even put any thought into inventing it. Rumors require no thought. Sunday Jinning's voice was very soft. They need only one thing to make people doubt. The Empress Dowager's fingers paused on her teacup. Girl, what do you want this old woman to do? Sunday Jinning did not answer directly. She took a sheet of paper from her sleeve and presented it to the Empress Dowager with both hands. The Empress Dowager unfolded it and glanced at the contents. There was only one line on the paper, a list of Lady Song's 3 close friends from before her marriage. All 3 are still alive. Sunday Jinning said, "One of them is your niece-in-law, Madame Wu." The Empress Dowager's brows shifted slightly. Lady Song and Madame Wu were close. They often exchanged letters. When Lady Song was gravely ill, Madame Wu visited her 3 times. The Imperial Medical Bureau's entry records can confirm it. What are you trying to say? I am saying, instead of letting rumors fill the skies, it would be better to let someone who knows the truth speak for herself. Madame Wu is your niece-in-law. Her word will carry more weight than any official denial. The Empress Dowager studied her for a long time. In those eyes weathered by a lifetime of hardship, shrewdness shone through the haze, and within that shrewdness was a trace of gratification. That old woman of the Sunday family, the Empress Dowager suddenly said with a laugh. The granddaughter she raised has certainly inherited her abilities. She patted Sunday Jinning's hand. Very well, this old woman will arrange it. Sunday Jinning rose and took her leave. As she reached the door, the Empress Dowager suddenly called after her, "Girl, does your Majesty have another instruction?" The Empress Dowager reclined on her cushioned couch. The Mina hopped onto her shoulder and cocked its head at Sunday Jinning. "The new Crown Prince, does he treat you well?" Sunday Jinning's footsteps paused for a second. His Highness shows this subject's wife great respect. Respect, the Empress Dowager repeated the word, then shook her head. "Girl, you have married once before, and that last husband of yours did not even give you respect." Sunday Jinning said nothing. This time, the Empress Dowager's gaze softened. "This old woman hopes you receive more than respect." She waved a hand. "Go." 3 days later, the rumors subsided. At a tea gathering for noblewomen, Madame Wu gave more than 20 ladies a detailed account of Lady Song's final days. She truly had died of illness, and the Imperial Medical Bureau's records of her treatment were complete. Madame Wu even produced the last letter Lady Song had written to her. In it, Lady Song thanked the Empress for sending medicine, her words earnest and utterly free of resentment. Once the letter circulated among the noblewomen, the rumor collapsed on its own. Those who had embellished the story in tea houses and taverns all fell silent overnight. Liu Zheng's second move had failed. That night, Xiao Chenggong returned to the Eastern Palace. When he entered the main courtyard, his footsteps were heavier than usual. Sunday Jinning was organizing documents by lamplight. Hearing him approach, she looked up. "Your Highness, today, you went to the Empress Dowager about the rumors." Sunday Jinning's fingers paused on the brush shaft. "Your Highness is very well informed," I asked Liu Fuquan. Xiao Chenggong walked to the table and sat down. He said the Crown Princess went to Signing Palace today and spoke privately with the Empress Dowager for half an hour. And then Madame Wu stepped forward to refute the rumor. Xiao Chenggong looked at her. The lamplight cast a soft, warm glow across her profile. The shadows of her lashes fell over her cheekbones, fluttering gently. "You did not discuss it with me. There was no time. For every extra day a rumor spreads, the damage it causes doubles. Sunday Jinning's tone was matter of fact. Besides, it was more appropriate for me to approach the Empress Dowager than for your Highness to do so. Why? Because if your Highness went, it would be a son complaining to his elder. If I went, it would be a granddaughter acting spoiled with the Empress Dowager. When she said acting spoiled, her expression was perfectly serious without the slightest hint of coyness. Xiao Chenggong stared for a second. Then he laughed, not his usual restrained chuckle, but a genuine laugh rising from deep in his chest. Sunday Jinning, laughing, he shook his head. What sort of spoiled act was that? It was enough that the Empress Dowager believed it. Xiao Chenggong laughed for a while before stopping. His gaze grew serious again. In the future, tell me first when something happens. I am the Crown Prince. There are some burdens the Crown Princess should not have to carry alone. Sunday Jinning's fingers tightened slightly around her brush. She raised her head and met his eyes. Lamplight danced between them, illuminating two utterly different faces, hers cool, his gentle, hers guarded, his candid. All right, she said, only 2 words. But Xiao Chenggong heard it in those 2 words. A string stretched taut for 3 years had loosened, just a little. After the affair of the rumors, Liu Zheng remained quiet for half a month. During that half-month, Sunday Jinning did 3 things. First, in the name of the Crown Princess, she reorganized the Eastern Palace's network of relationships. She repaired relations one by one with senior imperial clansmen Xiao Chenke had neglected and noblewoman, and young ladies whom Liu Yanj had offended. Her methods were simple, writing the invitations herself, making the pastries herself, and paying personal visits. There was no fanfare, no ostentatious display. But the results were excellent. Within half a month, the Eastern Palace went from receiving no replies to receiving 27. The wives of 7 senior ministers at court took the initiative to send invitations, asking to attend a tea gathering at the Eastern Palace. Second, she sorted the 37 people on the list into new categories: those who could be won over, those who required vigilance, and those who had to be removed. For the 15 who could be won over, she listed their individual demands and weaknesses, then gave the information to Xiao Chenggong so he could approach them. She arranged hidden agents to watch the 12 who required vigilance. As for the 10 who had to be removed, 8 were Liu Zheng's die-hard loyalists, and 2 were covert operatives Xiao Chengge had left behind. We cannot touch these 10, she told Xiao Chenggong. Why? If we move against them, Liu Zheng will know we have a list. He will replace them immediately, and we will not recognize the new hidden agent. Xiao Chenggong looked at her. Then what do you intend to do? Feed them false information? Xiao Chenggong raised a brow. Let them believe they are still in the shadows, when in fact every piece of information they send back is something we want Liu Zheng to see. Her tone was mild. As though remarking on the pleasant weather, Xiao Chenggong was silent for a moment. That tactic, who taught you? No one. Sunday Jinning lowered her head and continued writing. 3 years in the Eastern Palace made me self-taught. The third thing, and the most important, she unearthed one of Xiao Chenke's secrets. The secret was hidden in a concealed compartment in Xiao Chenke's study. The study was in the former Crown Prince's courtyard, which had stood empty since Xiao Chenke moved out. Carrying the Crown Princess's command token, Sunday Jinning took Kuiwei there to inventory what had been left behind. The hidden compartment lay within the false wall behind the 3rd shelf. Its mechanism was ingeniously concealed. If Sunday Jinning had not learned the grain of every wooden panel while tidying his study over the past 3 years, she would never have found it. Inside was a stack of letters. They were correspondence between Xiao Chengge and a man called Master Nan. Sunday Jinning sat in the empty study and read the letters one by one. The more she read, the darker her expression became. Master Nan's real name was Nanzheng, an advisor to a military governor of a southern domain. The letters showed that in the 3rd year after he was appointed Crown Prince, Xiao Chenke had begun using Nanzheng to make secret contact with the southern regional military powers. He was promising them greater autonomy once he ascended the throne. In exchange, the regional forces would provide him with military support when needed. Sunday Jinning's fingers stilled on the final letter. The date on it was 3 days before the birthday banquet. The letter read, "Brother K, do not worry. The day General Liu's daughter enters and rules the Eastern Palace will be the day North and South join forces. Everything will proceed as agreed. She gathered the letters together and braced both hands on the desk. Her knuckles were white. He had not merely wanted a different crown princess. He had wanted to change the realm itself. Kuiwei. My lady, go ask His Highness to come here. By the time Shangang finished reading the stack of letters, the smile had vanished from his face. His fingers gripped the corner of the final letter so tightly that the paper warped slightly. The main room was very quiet. Candlelight cast two shadows across the table. They overlapped like a tangle of entwined ink. He contacted the regional military governors. Xiao Chenggang's voice was very low. This is not a struggle for the succession, this is treason. If he had succeeded in marrying Liu Yangge, the Liu family's military authority combined with the support of the southern regional forces. Sunday Jinning also lowered her voice. He would have been more than crown prince. He could have reduced His Majesty to a figurehead. Xiao Chengkung closed his eyes. Does Father Emperor know about this? I am not certain. But Sunday Jinning pointed out a detail in the letters. At the birthday banquet, His Majesty deposed him with remarkable decisiveness, an edict issued overnight. The Imperial Guard's deployment changed and no time left for him to react. It was not an impulsive decision. You mean Father Emperor may have been investigating him already and merely lacked a pretext? What happened at the birthday banquet gave him that pretext. Their eyes met. Should we give these letters to His Majesty? Xiao Chenggong asked. Sunday Jinning was silent for several seconds. There is no hurry. No hurry. If we hand them over now, His Majesty will punish Xiao Chengke alone. But his ties to the regional forces still remain. Nanjung still remains, and Liuzheng still remains. Her finger slowly traced a circle on the tabletop. If we pull it up by the roots. Xiao Chenggung stared at her for a long time. Sunday Jinning. His voice held an indescribably complex note. Are you truly only the granddaughter of a minor fifth-rank official? Sunday Jinning raised her head. Her eyes shone brilliantly in the candlelight, clear and sharp, like a sword hidden in its sheath, and suddenly drawn. I am Grand Madam Sunday's granddaughter, she said. 20 years ago, she entered the hunting grounds alone and rescued the present emperor from a rain of arrows. The standing of a minor fifth-rank official was what she chose for herself, she said. Great rank and authority invite suspicion. Better to be a minor fifth-rank official and live a quiet, dutiful life. As for me, the corner of her mouth curved. She taught me 3 things my whole life: endure, see clearly, and strike true. I endured for 3 years and watched for 3 years. Now she did not finish the last sentence, but Xiao Cheng understood. Strike. 1 month later, the Golden Throne Hall morning court. Xiao Chenggong stood in the Crown Prince's place, a memorial held in his hands. Father Emperor, this son has a matter to report. The Emperor glanced at him. Speak. This son impeaches the former Crown Prince, Xiao Chengke, for colluding with southern regional military powers and secretly plotting treason. The assembled civil and military officials looked as though lightning had struck them. A storm of discussion erupted. Ignoring the buzz of voices, Xiao Chenggung presented his memorial along with copies of the stack of letters. The original letters have been sealed and deposited with the Court of Judicial Review. Every word this son reports is true. The Emperor accepted the letters and opened to the first page. His expression did not change. He turned the pages one by one. When he reached the last letter, the one from 3 days before the birthday banquet, his fingers trembled slightly. Only once. Then he closed the letters and shut his eyes. Liu Fuquan, this servant is here. Issue an edict. Xiao Chengge, now at the Western Suburban Palace, is to be taken into custody at once and confined in the Court of Judicial Review. He must not escape. Liuzheng is stripped of all offices, and his entire family is forbidden to leave the capital. As for the southern regional military powers, the Ministry of War and the Bureau of Military Affairs are to investigate them jointly. This servant obeys. The instant the orders were issued, officials dropped to their knees across the court. Some knocked their heads frantically against the floor. Others wore faces as grey as death. Of the 10 people on the list marked must be removed, 8 collapsed on the spot and had to be dragged out by the Imperial Guards. The Court of Judicial Review. Xiao Chengke was confined in the deepest solitary cell. Iron chains bound his wrists and ankles, clattering with every step he took. The cell was dark. Only a palm-sized air window overhead let in a faint sliver of light. He sat slumped in a corner, his hair disheveled and his face haggard. Of the handsome, distinguished face he had once possessed, only dark circles and cracked lips remained. The cell door opened. Footsteps, one light and one heavy, came inside. He raised his head. A woman stood against the light. A plain teal robe, a white jade hairpin, and a perfectly straight back. Sunday, Jinning. His voice sounded like a shattered tile, coarse and grating. Sunday Jinning did not sit. She stood at the entrance to the cell, 5 paces away from him. You came to laugh at me. I came to tell you something. What? Sunday Jinning looked at him. In the dim light, the sight of him curled in a corner reminded her of a snowy night 3 years earlier. That night, she had burned with fever and waited for him to return to the Eastern Palace. She waited all night, but he never came. He was in Liu Yang's courtyard, warming himself by the fire and admiring the snow. Kuiwei had knelt beside her bed and wept. She had not cried. When the fever left her delirious, she poured herself a bowl of medicine and forced it down. The next morning her fever broke. She dressed neatly and went to the study to organize his documents. When he entered, he said only, "Oh, you are here." Then he sat down, leafed through the memorials she had arranged, and said, "Revise the wording of this one from the Ministry of Revenue." She revised it. Later he took that memorial to court, where the emperor publicly praised its exquisite prose. He returned in high spirits, smiling as he told Liu Yanji, "Father Emperor praised me today." That day, Sunday Jinning sat in a corner of the study and heard Liu Yanji's honeyed flattery coming from the next room. She lowered her head and continued sorting documents without saying a word. 3 years. She had stayed beside this man for 3 years. Now, standing at the entrance to his cell and looking at him, she could finally tell him the truth. "Do you know how many of the memorials you submitted were written by me?" Xiao Chenke froze. Of 39 memorials, 23 came from my hand. 7 of them, from the first word to the last, were entirely mine, including the Ministry of Revenue proposal His Majesty praised for its exquisite prose. His lips moved, but no sound emerged. "And the imperial clan relations, you took such pride in the pacification of 3 royal uncles and the resolution of 5 clan disputes. I handled all of them behind the scenes. You thought you were born with the makings of a crown prince." Sunday Jinning's voice was calm, as if stating a fact long since settled beyond dispute. "In truth, you merely happened to have a capable crown princess." Xiao Chenki's pupils widened. His mouth opened, failed to close, then opened wider still, like a fish stranded on the shore. "No, impossible. You need not believe me." Sunday Jinning took a stack of papers from her sleeve and tossed them before him. The sheets scattered across the floor. They were every draft she had compiled over those 3 years. Each bore her handwriting, with dates, annotations, and revisions, all perfectly clear. Xiao Chenki's hands trembled. He picked up one sheet, then another, then another. He knew the handwriting on every page. He had read those memorials for 3 years, and every word, it turned out, had come from her hand. His breathing grew faster and faster. "You, why did you?" "Because you were the crown prince," Sunday Jinning said. "Only if you performed well would the Eastern Palace remain secure, and only if the Eastern Palace was secure would I have a place to survive." There was not a trace of resentment in her voice. That wounded him more than resentment would have. "I did not do it for you," she said. "I did it for myself. It just so happened that you enjoyed the credit for 3 years without ever knowing it." Xiao Chenki's hands slipped from the papers. He shrank into the corner like a length of dead wood drained of every drop of moisture. Jinning, he suddenly reached out, trying to seize the hem of her robe. His chain snapped taut with a sharp clatter. His hand stopped 3 inches from her. "I was wrong." His voice trembled. "I know I was wrong, Jinning, save me. Go beg Father Emperor, please." Xiao Chenki. Sunday Jinning took 1 step back, his fingers closed on empty air. "When I married you 3 years ago, I wanted to be a good crown princess. You neglected me, and I did not hold it against you. You doted on Liu Yangi, and I did not compete. You claimed my achievements as your own, and I said nothing, because I thought as long as I did well enough, one day you would finally see me. But you never did. Not only did you fail to see me, you tried to cast me aside. Before every civil and military official at court, you cast me aside. She did not raise her voice, but every word was like a red-hot iron nail driven into Xiao Chengqi's ears. You ask why I will not save you. She lowered her eyes to him. The faint light in the cell fell over her face. Her expression was as still as a mirror, and reflected in that mirror was Xiao Chengqi's own ugliness. Because you are not worth it. 6 words, light as air. Yet they crushed the last strength in Xiao Chengqi's spine. He collapsed onto the floor, his iron chains scraping shrilly over the stone. His lips worked, broken sounds emerging from his throat, whether he was trying to speak or crying. No one could tell. Sunday Jinning did not look at him again. She turned and walked out of the cell. Behind her came the dull clang of the iron door closing. When she emerged from the Court of Judicial Review, Kuai Wei was waiting outside. My lady returned to the residence. Kuai Wei saw that her fingers were trembling faintly. It was not from the cold, it was from letting go. 3 years of endurance, 3 years of bitterness, 3 years of repression after she said, "You are not worth it." All of it emptied away, like a breath of stale air held for 3 years, finally released from her chest. She entered the carriage, and the curtain fell. The instant the carriage began to move, she closed her eyes and leaned her back against the wall. Kuai Wei stole a glance at her in the swaying carriage. The corners of Sunday Jinning's mouth had lifted slightly, only the smallest curve, but in the more than 10 years Kuai Wei had served her, this was the first time she had seen her smile so lightly. The Court of Judicial Review reached its verdict quickly. The charge that Xiao Chengqi had colluded with regional military powers was proven. The original letters, witnesses to the exchanges, and Nanjung's confession formed an unbroken chain of evidence, ironclad and overwhelming. The emperor issued his final edict. Xiao Chengqi was reduced to commoner status and sentenced to lifelong confinement in the western suburban palace, forbidden to leave or receive visitors. Liu Zheng was stripped of every office. The Liu estate was confiscated and its property seized by the state. Liu Yangyi was reduced to commoner status along with her father. Every own connected to the southern regional forces was captured. Nanjung was beheaded. The implicated military governors were either dismissed or demoted, and the hidden agents connecting the court to the regions were pulled up by the roots. An autumn rain fell over the capital on the day the news spread. Sunday Jinning stood beneath the covered walkway of the Eastern Palace's main courtyard, watching rain stream from the eaves gather into slender rivulets and run into the courtyard drains. The golden osmanthus had passed its flowering season, leaving only a few scattered blossoms on the branches. Rain struck the petals, sending them falling one by one until the ground was dusted with broken gold. Kuai Wei brought over a bowl of ginger soup. "My lady, the weather has turned cold. Drink some ginger soup to warm yourself." Sunday Jinning accepted the bowl and took a sip. The sharp ginger burned all the way from her throat to her stomach. "Kuai Wei, yes. Tell me, is it over?" Kuai Wei considered the question. "Xiao Chengqi has been confined. The Liu estate has been seized, and Liu Yanga," she paused. "I heard someone saw her at a ruined temple in the south of the city yesterday." "A ruined temple?" After the Liu estate was seized, she had nowhere to go. Liu Zheng is being held by the Ministry of Justice, and the family Liu Yanrui married in to send her straight back. They were afraid of being implicated by the Liu family. Sunday Jinning lowered her eyes. "She tried to reach me," Kuai Wei said quietly. "Yesterday, she sent someone with a letter begging you to spare her a way to live for the sake of old ties." "What old ties?" Kuai Wei curled her lip. "The ties from trampling on you for 3 years. Sunday Jinning did not smile. She looked down at the ginger soup. Her blurred reflection floated in the amber liquid. "Send the letter back." "I know." Kuai Wei had already returned it. But Sunday Jinning paused. "Have someone send her a purse of silver, 50 taels. Enough to keep her fed." Kuai Wei's eyes widened. "My lady, 3 years ago, her maid offered you 50 taels to buy you off, and you refused." Sunday Jinning finished the last sip of ginger soup. "These 50 taels will settle that debt. From now on, we owe each other nothing." The rain stopped at dusk. When Xiao Chenggeng returned to the Eastern Palace, A band of fading sunsets still lingered along the horizon. He entered the main courtyard and saw Sunday Jinning sitting on a low stool beneath the covered walkway. On the small table before her were a pot of tea and 2 cups. One was full, one was empty. The empty cup sat in his usual place. He walked over and sat down. She poured him a cup of tea. Today's tea by Luochun. He accepted it and took a sip. Not bad, softer than Longjing. They drank in silence for a while. Drops of water clung to the golden osmanthus tree in the courtyard. Sunlight pierced the clouds, refracting into tiny arcs of light across each bead. Xiao Chenqi's case is closed, Xiao Chenggong said first. The Liu family has also been dealt with completely. As for the hidden agents at court of the 37 people on your list, 23 have been removed, and the remaining 14 have been brought over to our side. Xiao Chenggong turned to look at her. She held her teacup, her gaze resting on the distant eaves. The last streaks of sunset were slowly fading, and the sky was changing from orange-red to grey-blue. You have said 3 times. That makes 4. The corner of Sunday Jinning's mouth twitched. Xiao Chenggong set down his teacup and turned slightly toward her. Sunday Jinning, if your highness has something to say it plainly. There are 2 things. The first, starting tomorrow, you will no longer bear the Eastern Palace's household affairs alone. I will take half. Sunday Jinning's fingers paused against the cup. Your highness does not trust my ability. I trust it too much, Xiao Chenggong said. That is why I worry you will exhaust yourself. Sunday Jinning turned to him. His expression was serious, no smile, no note of jest. The last of the sunlight traced a golden line along his profile. From temple to jaw, she looked away and took a sip of tea. And the second thing, Xiao Chenggong was silent for 3 seconds. Then he took something from his sleeve, a hairpin. It was not a white jade hairpin. It was a new one set in pure gold, with a thumb-sized sapphire mounted at its tip. The gem's facets caught the light, reflecting a deep blue glow. Among the wedding gifts the Empress Dowager bestowed on you was a casket of jewelry. I chose this one. I thought it suited you. He placed the hairpin on the table before her. The metal touched the tabletop with the faintest sound. Sunday Jinning looked at the hairpin. Her fingers touched its shaft. The metal was cool, yet beneath her fingertip, it seemed to hold the faintest warmth. That white jade hairpin in your hair, Xiao Chenggong said. You have worn it for 3 years, haven't you? A mice was soft. Wear a new one. His tone sounded less like an order than a request. Sunday Jinning lowered her eyes to the hairpin's intricate engraving. After a long while, she reached up and removed the white jade hairpin from her hair. The 3-year-old pin bore a hairline crack along its shaft made in her first year in the Eastern Palace, when she had cried once and gripped it so hard that it struck something. She placed the white jade hairpin on the table. Then she picked up the new hairpin and slid it into her coiffure. The sapphire flashed in the last ray of sunset like a star falling from a distant sky into her hair. Xiao Chenggong looked at her. She raised her head and met his eyes. Between them stood a small table, 2 cups of tea, and an old hairpin. Your Highness. Thank you. 2 words. Nothing more. But Xiao Chenggong saw it deep within her cool, clear eyes. Something was thawing, like a stream beneath the ice stirred by the first warm breeze of spring, very slowly. But it was flowing. What happened afterward became stories the people of the capital told for a long time. They said the new crown prince and crown princess lived in perfect harmony. They said the crown princess entered and left the court to help the crown prince govern. They said the emperor sought the new crown prince's counsel on every important matter, and behind the new crown prince always stood a woman in a plain teal robe, a sapphire hairpin in her hair. They said Xiao Chenqi drank himself senseless every day in the western suburban palace. Half his hair turned white, 2 words repeating endlessly on his lips. Jinning. They said Liu Yangyi vanished into a small southern city and was never seen again. They said Grand Madame Sunday sat sunning herself in the courtyard of the old Sunday residence. The 87-year-old woman narrowing her eyes as she stroked the cat on her lap and said, Endure, see clearly, and strike true. My granddaughter learned them all. Does the story end here? Sunday Jinning would say it does not. Because she sat beneath the covered walkway of the new Crown Prince's residence, a pot of Beluachan tea at her side, and across from her was someone who would pour her tea, close the window for her, and worry that she might be cold. The winter of 3 years was finally over. The days ahead, it was time for them to grow warm. Rational thinkers, the reckoning in this game of the changing Phoenix Crown is now complete. Next, let us hear another story. When I became gravely ill, the noble consort happened to suffer a difficult labor, and Pei Shu took my physician into the palace to save her. He said I could wait, but the noble consort could not. After I died, because no physician came in time, Pei Shu went mad. He held my corpse and searched everywhere for a miracle doctor who could revive the dead. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to a palace banquet 10 years earlier. The emperor asked me, which young gentleman of the Pei family has caught Zhao Zhao's eye? My gaze passed over the tense Pei Shu and landed on the sickly Pei Yu. Lowering my head, I said, the fourth son of the Pei family. Pei Shu's uncle, the living king of hell, as the world called him. Heavy snow was falling. Pei Shu returned from the palace, still in his official robe, and burst into my room without even closing the door behind him. The cold wind made me shiver, but it was nothing beside the chill of Pei Shu's words. The noble consort is having a difficult labor. The imperial physicians are helpless. Physician Zhen is highly skilled, perhaps he can turn the tide. The pain of illness was nothing beside the pain in my heart. I clenched the bedsheet and lowered my eyes. What does the noble consort's childbirth have to do with you? Pei Shu raised his voice, as though I were the one being unreasonable. A life is at stake. Must you still sulk at me now? A life at stake. What fine words. I was terminally ill and could die at any moment, while the noble consort was merely in labor, yet she was entitled to take the physician keeping me alive. Only the noble consort's life was at stake. Mine amounted to nothing more than my unreasonable sulking. I looked at Pei Shu and tears fell straight from my eyes. I had thought my heart was dead. It turned out it could still hurt. Pei Shu opened his mouth and reached out as if to comfort me, but curled his hand back before touching me. In a hoarse voice he said, "Zhao Zhao, you have always been sensible." Yes, I had always been sensible, so the lady in the palace had to come first in everything. Pearl hairpins, ginseng, the physician who kept me alive, and my husband's heart. Whatever she wanted, I had to give her. I had been married to Pei Shu for 7 years. I endured my husband's neglect, my mother-in-law's cruelty, and the noble consort's persecution. Everyone praised Zhao Zhao of the Shu family as the most sensible woman in the capital, but enduring it hurt so much. What if I refused to lend him to her? Pei Shu wiped a cold tear from my face with his thumb. His touch was gentle, but his words merciless. "Zhao Zhao, you have been ill for 2 years. Another short delay will make no difference, but the noble consort cannot wait. Do not worry, I will return soon." He was the head of the household, in truth. He did not need my consent to take a physician away. When Pei Shu left, the snow on his clothes had not even melted. He had not closed the door coming or going. He had never intended to stay long. He was in such a hurry. He had also forgotten to ask how my illness was progressing. Every part of his heart was tied to noble consort Zhao Xia. What did 7 years together matter? What did swallowing every grievance matter? What did virtue and gentleness matter? In the end, I could not compete with the lady in the palace. Perhaps the Bodhisattva pitied the bitterness of my life. That very night, my illness flared. Physician Zhen was gone, and the hastily summoned doctor knew nothing of my condition. With my treatment delayed, I died in that heavy snow. Freed from that heavy shell of a body, I heard the maid's anguished cries pierce the silent night. The snow stopped, the noble consort and her child were safe, and Pei Shu did not return all night. At daybreak, hurried hoofbeats rang through the quiet streets. Pei Shu came staggering along, clutching physician Zhen by the collar, hearing the sobs from my courtyard. He stumbled outside the gate. He scrambled up again without even brushing the snow from his clothes. Shoving physician Zhen forward, he said, "Examine her. Go and see how is my wife." Physician Zhen did not move. News of my death had already travelled throughout the capital on the sound of weeping. Pei Shu walked slowly to my bed. As though he could no longer stand, he knelt beside me and took my ice-cold hand. Afraid of startling me, he whispered, "Zhao Zhao, I am back. I brought physician Zhen back. Let him examine you and write a few prescriptions. After you take the medicine, stop sleeping. Get up and talk to me." No one in the room spoke, only muffled sobs could be heard. Pei Shu remained still for a moment, then turned to physician Zhen, who stood frozen in place, and shouted with reddened eyes, "I told you to examine my wife. Why are you standing there?" Physician Zhen said expressionlessly, "Lord Pei, your wife has passed away, no matter how great this old man's skill. I cannot treat the living dead." Pei Shu smashed porcelain across the floor and cursed physician Zhen as a quack. Abandoning all the decorum of an aristocratic gentleman, he drove out every grieving maid and roared like a madman, "My wife is only asleep. What is there to cry about? Get out, all of you, get out." Only when no one else remained did Pei Shu collapse beside the bed and press his face insistently into my cold palm, murmuring, "Zhao Zhao, are you blaming me? I was wrong, wake up and curse me a few times." "Why did you never curse me?" "Because I had studied propriety since childhood. Mother said a woman must know proper conduct, respect and love her husband, be tolerant and generous, virtuous and gentle. Only when I was dying did I understand that the man-eating rules of this world were taught solely to women. When I was buried, I thought only that if heaven pitied me enough to grant another life, it should not make me a woman again. But when I opened my eyes again, elegant court music surrounded me. I knelt in a resplendent hall as someone above asked, "Zhao Zhao, which young gentleman of the Pei family has caught your eye?" I stared for a long time, almost rudely, at the emperor in the prime of his life upon the dais. 10 years ago, someone had indeed asked me that question. At the time, I had just followed grandmother from Shu to the capital for the express purpose of choosing a husband. I understood nothing of political struggles. I knew only that everything I had learned from the day I was born had been preparation for marrying into a family in the capital. Mother had done her best to raise me meek and virtuous, hoping that the imaginary future family awaiting me in the capital would treat me kindly because of it. After all, Shu and the capital were very far apart. Once I married, I would have no branch to rely on. I had once believed Mother's teaching with all my heart a woman's happiness depended on what sort of husband she chose. So after all my choosing, I chose the upright and honorable Pei Shu. Yet I spent my life trapped and miserable and met a wretched end. Heaven pitied my foolish devotion and let me begin again. This time, no matter what, I would not repeat the same mistake. My gaze passed over Pei Shu's rigid form and fell on the sickly-looking man beside him wrapped in a fox fur cloak. Unfortunately, I had been reborn too late. Just before this, grandmother had told the Grand Princess that a son of the Pei family had caught my eye. If I denied it now, I would be admitting that I had spoken recklessly before the Grand Princess. Among the Pei sons of marriageable age, the only one besides Pei Shu was Pei Yu, whom no one wanted. I closed my eyes, and steeling myself, dragged Pei Yu into the mess. "It is Pei Yu." At those words, even the musicians missed a beat. Pei Shu knocked over his wine cup and looked up at me, his gaze cold and severe. For some reason, the atmosphere froze for a second, because I had chosen someone everyone despised. Pei Yu's reputation in the capital was truly appalling. Bloodthirsty by nature, he commanded the embroidered uniform guard and was the imperial family's faithful hound. His vicious reputation had spread so widely that at 26 he had neither wife nor even a concubine. His daily pleasures were arresting people, interrogating them, and chopping off heads. He had made enemies by the basketful and was unwelcome wherever he went. I heard that years ago the Duke's household had arranged a marriage for him before his fiancée could enter the family. However, official duty required him to execute 7 clans of her relatives. From that moment on, Pei Yu was completely removed from the capital's marriage market. What respectable family would send its daughter to the gates of the King of Hell? In my previous life, I met Pei Yu several times after marrying Pei Shu. At first, I too was terrified of this cold fourth uncle who seemed wreathed in the aura of a ghost. Until Pei Shu went mad after I died. He searched everywhere for a miracle doctor to bring me back to life and even slept beside my corpse. Eventually, the corpse began to crumble. Even I thought I stank. Frantic with worry, I only wanted to be buried as soon as possible. But no one in the Duke's household could restrain Pei Shu, so they had no choice but to let him carry on. Until Pei Yu returned to the capital after spending half a year away on official business. He put a blade to Pei Shu's neck and took my corpse back. I still remembered how bright the sun was that day. Pei Yu wore the blood-red, gold-threaded flying fish uniform, which dispelled the sinister aura around him and set off his excessively handsome face to striking effect. Holding a long saber, Pei Yu asked whether Pei Shu dared die for love. His phoenix eyes brimmed with mockery, lashing Pei Shu until there was nothing left of his dignity. Were all the imperial physicians in the palace not enough? You had to rush forward with your own wife's physician and make a spectacle of yourself. You could not even keep your wife alive, and you call yourself a husband. He laughed at Pei Shu. You held a priceless pearl and discarded it like a worn shoe. Now that her soul has returned to the 9 heavens, you put on this affected performance. How very amusing. She is already gone. If you are still a man, do not obstruct her path to reincarnation. I was laid to rest entirely because of Pei Yu. Perhaps he was not so frightening after all. The man you favor is Pei Yu, the emperor asked again, his voice colored by disbelief. Only then did Pei Yu raise his head. His gaze settled on me with neither too much nor too little force. He propped up his head and stared without moving. It made my skin prickle. Pei Yu of 10 years earlier truly was unbearably sinister. My scalp tingled under his stare. Gritting my teeth, I endured it and answered stubbornly. In answer to your majesty, the man this subject's daughter favors is Pei Yu, Lord Pei. I hoped the emperor would reject the match, or that Pei Yu would stand and object vehemently, cursing me for indulging in wishful thinking. But Pei Yu did not. He looked me up and down, yawned, then lowered his eyes and resumed playing with the gleaming strand of beads in his hand. The emperor glanced at Pei Yu, then turned and cheerfully praised me for my extraordinary courage. With a sweep of his hand, he granted the marriage, as though afraid I would change my mind if he waited another moment. His imperial countenance even displayed the joy of someone who had finally managed to marry off a son. I stood frozen, unable to smile at all. This was not how matters were supposed to develop. Instinctively, I looked at Pei Yu, hoping he might make one last desperate protest, but he was still playing with that wretched bead, as though he were not the man whose marriage had just been arranged. Was he simply going to accept this wicked imperial match without the slightest resistance? He was disgracing his fearsome reputation as the living king of hell. Only after the emperor took Pei Yu into Xuanxi Hall to discuss official matters did the banquet come alive again. All the idle gossip was directed at me. One of Pei Shu's colleagues laughed. Lady Shu is rather scheming to get close to you. She actually used Pei Yu as a cover. She truly has no idea how to value her life. Pei Shu rebuked him coldly. Brother Chen, mind your words. He said that, but the way Pei Shu looked at me now held an extra measure of disgust. He probably also thought I had chosen Pei Yu to get close to him. After all, I had only just arrived in the capital and did not yet understand its subtle ways. Filled with sincere devotion, I had pursued Pei Shu so openly that everyone knew of it. I had slipped Pei Shu an embroidered sachet only yesterday, yet today I had taken a fancy to his uncle. To anyone else, it truly looked shameless. I had no desire to answer the criticism. I only wanted to leave this troublesome place as quickly as possible. But the eunuch leading the way took me farther and farther from the proper route. The chill of early spring had not yet faded, yet sweat covered my entire body. It was not from heat. Someone had drugged me, even though I had not chosen Pei Shu in this life. Zhao Xia still had no intention of sparing me. 4 eunuchs surrounded me front and back, hemming me in as they forced me onward. I slowed my steps and said, "This is not the way out of the palace," the eunuch replied. "Lady Shu is mistaken. This is indeed the way out." The road ahead was pitch black somewhere. The lecherous Air Fang whom Zhao Xia had arranged was waiting for me. Just then, a long, slender shadow turned into the far end of the road. He was an imperial guard and was probably reporting for duty. My heart pounded. Clenching my fists, I called, "Lord Pei." Pei Shu stopped but showed no intention of coming closer. Taking the opportunity, I pushed aside the eunuch in front of me and ran to Pei Shu. In a low voice, I said, "Can you escort me out of the palace?" As long as Pei Shu agreed to take me out, I could escape this disaster. Pei Shu gave a cold laugh. "Lady Shu, what trick are you playing now?" His voice overflowed with disgust. "Since you chose my uncle, stop shamelessly trying to seduce me." He had misunderstood. I truly did not mean that. The senior eunuch behind me stepped forward at the perfect moment and counseled me with apparent consideration. "Lady Shu, Lord Pei still has duties to perform. Let this servant escort you out of the palace." I clutched Pei Shu's sleeve and stared hard at him. "Pei Shu, Before I could finish, a palace maid came running from the distance. "Lord Pei, the noble consort, has been attacked." The sleeve in my hand was abruptly torn away. Pei Shu flung me off and, without pausing to ask another question, hurried into the night. Zhao Xia had done it deliberately. Whenever Zhao Xia wished, she could summon Pei Shu away at any crucial moment. In my previous life, the sight I knew best was Pei Shu's back as he left me. Once Pei Shu was gone, the eunuch's expression changed. He seized my hair and dragged me toward a secluded palace hall. Before I even crossed the threshold, a man reeking of wine wrapped his arms around my waist. Sister Zhao was right. You truly are a budding beauty. Though I struggled with all my strength, I could never match a man's power. Even a useless drunkard was too strong for me to escape. His cloying breath spilled over my neck. I was both terrified and sickened. In the chaos, my hand found a fallen silver hairpin, and I drove it toward Fang Ping's eye. Unfortunately, I missed. It only grazed the corner of his eye and enraged him. Fang Ping raised his hand and slapped me viciously. "Bitch!" The blow left me dizzy and disoriented, but I dared not waste the chance. Gathering my strength, I kicked him hard. I scrambled forward, lifted my skirts, and ran with all my might. Fang Ping pursued me relentlessly. I stumbled around the covered corridor and crashed into an arm. The man wrapped one arm around my waist, pulled me back and held me firmly at his side. With one kick, he sent the pursuing Fang Ping flying several yards away. I looked up and saw a delicately handsome face. Pei Yu, a man steeped in blood, was like a blade that had tasted it. Even with its edge concealed, it still carried a savage menace. That was Pei Yu Bai. All right. He was far more frightening than Fang Ping, but at that moment I was not afraid of him at all. Pei Yu removed his fox fur cloak, wrapped it around me, and lowered his eyes to fasten it. Yet his question was directed at Fang Ping behind us. "Herr Fang, what sort of game are you playing here?" Fang Ping was probably afraid of Pei Yu. His face white, he said, "This bitch seduced me." Pei Yu's hands paused, and he gave a low laugh. "Interesting." He turned and walked toward Fang Ping, bending slightly as he asked, "You are saying that, compared to me, my future wife prefers you?" Pei Yu seized Fang Ping by the hair, sounding puzzled. "Herr Fang, am I truly inferior to you?" Fang Ping trembled in terror. No. Pei Yu dragged Fang Ping over by his hair. His gaze swept across my right hand. "Which of his eyes do you want?" I gripped the hairpin tightly. Though I was out of danger, I was still too shaken to speak. "Cannot choose." Pei Yu lowered his head and took my trembling hand beneath the cloak. Guiding me, he drove the hairpin into Fang Ping's eye. Blood splashed across my face. Pei Yu's steady breathing sounded beside my ear. "Then let us take both." By the time Pei Yu's men dragged Fang Ping away, my strength was also spent. I pitched straight toward the ground. Quick-eyed and quick-handed, Pei Yu caught me, looking sidelong at me. He asked, "What filthy thing did you ingest?" I clutched his robe, my limbs weak and only a shred of reason remaining. In a breathless whisper I said, "Lord Pei, please find me an imperial physician." Pei Yu bent to sniff the air near my neck. "Spring tide crossing. An imperial physician will be no use." He carried me into an empty hall and ordered his men, "Bring cold water." Spring tide crossing could only be cured through carnal union. I could not even wait for the cold water. I clung to Pei Yu like an octopus, rubbing my burning face wantonly against his cool neck. The relief made me moan. Pei Yu pressed me onto the couch. His hair fell around us, brushing my neck and shoulders, cool and ticklish. He asked me, "Can you still tell who I am, Lord Pei?" I sniffed. He would not let me rub against him, and I felt aggrieved. "I am hot." Pei Yu gripped my face, his tone unfriendly. "Say it clearly, which Lord Pei?" Peiyu, what me to do? I wrapped my arms around his neck and tried to please him by pressing my lips to his. Save me, Peiyu. Peiyu's Adam's apple moved. His fingers traced my spine, leaving a trail of shivers. They slipped beneath my skirt, his cold fingertips touching my skin as he whispered beside my ear. When you wake tomorrow, do not say I took advantage of you. Peiyu saved my life with one hand and ruined a fine set of clothes in the process. I slept well. By dawn, Peiyu was gone, leaving only a palace maid to escort me out. I was temporarily staying at the Grand Princess's residence. As soon as I returned, I learned that Pei Shu had been waiting in the front hall for some time. My footsteps stopped. Yesterday he had loathed me so much that he would scarcely say another word. Why had he come to seek me out today? Before I reached the hall, I heard the Grand Princess say, "Your fourth uncle took her out early this morning. I do not know where they went." Pei Yu must have told her to give that explanation. Pei Shu stared silently at the teacup in his hands. His gaze was dark, his face weary, and his knuckles white. The Grand Princess turned, saw me, and smiled. There she is now. Pei Shu's head snapped up. He stared at me for a moment, and his eyes instantly reddened. Setting down his cup, he said with nearly discourteous haste, "Your Highness, this subject takes his leave." He swallowed hard, then said hoarsely, "Zhao Zhao, see me out. Yesterday, I had been Lady Shu today. I was Zhao Zhao." I studied Pei Shu for a long moment to confirm a suspicion I did not refuse. I walked ahead while Pei Shu followed behind, his hoarse voice reaching me. "It was a lie, wasn't it? You were not at the Grand Princess's residence last night. You never left the palace. I searched every side hall. Who were you with?" I frowned. "Lord Pei, you have overstepped." As if he had not heard me, Pei Shu asked stubbornly, "You were drugged, weren't you? Why did you not come to me? It should have been me." He paused, swallowed the rest, and demanded through clenched teeth, "Who cured you? Who did you?" Who? Ordinarily, Pei Shu should not have known I had been drugged, much less behaved with such familiarity. There was only one possible explanation. Pei Shu had also been reborn. Last night because in our previous life. On the night I was drugged, Pei Shu was the one who had lain with me. Seeing the crimson jealousy in Pei Shu's eyes, I suddenly smiled. With whom did I share a night of passion? Surely young Master Pei knows perfectly well. Whoever's carriage had brought me back was the man I had been with. All colour instantly drained from Pei Shu's face. He stepped back and murmured, "Pei Yu." I stepped closer and looked Pei Shu directly in the eyes. "Why did I not seek you? Has Lord Pei forgotten? Last night I begged you to escort me out of the palace, but Lord Pei was too busy protecting the noble consort to help, so I had no choice but to find someone willing. Does my lord have anything else to ask?" Pei Shu's face was pallid. He closed his eyes, and when he opened them again they were webbed with red. He said, "It does not matter. You were forced by circumstance. Pei Yu is not a suitable husband. I will go before His Majesty and ask him to rescind the marriage edict. No matter what, I will marry you." As though possessed, he reached to touch my face. "Zhao Zhao, forget Pei Yu. Let us be as we were before, all right?" I stepped back, avoiding his hand. "Lord Pei misunderstands. I asked for the marriage to Pei Yu myself. I am now in love with your fourth uncle. You would do well not to meddle." That was what I said. But in truth, I had no desire to enter the dangerous lair of the Pei household a second time. Pei Shu was stubborn. He knelt before the emperor for hours, begging him to rescind the marriage edict until Pei Yu kicked him half to death and dragged him home. With that kick, Pei Yu ended not only Pei Shu's hopes, but mine as well. Marrying into the Pei household was still better than being kicked by Pei Yu. Perhaps the emperor also feared that delay would breed complications, for on the third day the Directorate of Astronomy delivered an auspicious date. That afternoon, Pei Yu sent over the gift list. He left me no room to refuse. The Grand Princess stared at the gift lists covering the floor, her mouth hanging open for a long time. I knew Pei Yu was wealthy, but I never imagined that boy was this wealthy. There are so many treasures here, even I have never seen many of them. He did not rob the imperial treasury, did he? I had not expected it either. In my previous life, when Pei Shu married me, his gift list was not even 1/10 as generous. I remained at the Grand Princess's residence to await my wedding. making plans to open 2 shops in the capital. I was in my room wearing only an inner robe and calculating accounts when someone leapt down from my roof and came through the window. Startled, I was about to call out when he covered my mouth. "Do not shout. It is me." I recognized Peiyu's voice and smelled blood. He leaned against me from behind, resting most of his weight on my body. Reaching into the front of my robe, he pressed a cold jade pendant against my skin. When he let go, the ornament slid down inside my collar, but it did not fall out beneath my hem. My entire face flamed red. This lecher. "Hide it for me," Peiyu released me, took the clothes hanging over the screen, and wrapped them around me, dressed properly. With that, he let me go and collapsed onto my bed, unmoving. By the time people from the palace arrived, Peiyu had been unconscious for some time. The embroidered uniform guard carried Peiyu away and politely invited me along as well. Peiyu recuperated in a side hall of the palace. Apart from me, he did not even have a personal eunuch attending him. The embroidered uniform guard said this was Peiyu's wish. Our lord said that if he were gravely wounded and unconscious, the only person permitted at his side would be you, sister-in-law. An imperial physician examined him, left a prescription, and departed. I had no choice but to tend Peiyu's wounds without complaint. Beneath his respectable clothes lay layers of crisscrossing scars, old and new. There was not a single patch of uninjured flesh on his body. Serving as the imperial family's hound was a trade conducted with one's head in one's hands. However glorious Peiyu appeared before others, he bore equal suffering in private. Gravely wounded and unconscious, he had no one he trusted at his side except me, a fiancée he barely knew. This was what it meant to be truly alone. Peiyu remained unconscious for 2 days. Before I could see him wake, Zhao Xia arrived. She brought an elderly eunuch to examine my chastity. Several palace maids forced me to my knees. Zhao Xia pinched my face and said, "The entire capital is saying Lady Shu has been defiled. An examination today will help restore Lady Shu's innocence." She was deliberately humiliating me. When the old eunuch reached to tear off my clothes, I rebuked him with reddened eyes. "You dare touch me? I am Peiyu's betrothed wife." The old eunuch did fear Peiyu after all, and my shout stopped him. Zhao Xia laughed. "How imposing. You threw yourself at him, but has Peiyu ever acknowledged you?" "His betrothed wife, do not worry. Once your body has been examined, you will not be." She blew on her nail guard. "Eunuch Chi, proceed." The old eunuch ordered the palace maids. "Take off her trousers and spread her legs." Several maids pinned down my arms and legs, leaving me unable to move. My fingers scraped the floor until they nearly bled. Such humiliation. When the old eunuch touched my leg, nausea rose in my throat, tears streaming down my face. I cursed him bitterly. "Get away, get off me. Do not touch me, do not touch me." I closed my eyes in despair. If only I were stronger or possessed Peiyu's abilities. Then I could kill them. Just as my underdrawers were about to be removed, I heard the sound of a sharp weapon piercing flesh. The old eunuch collapsed beside my feet, a throwing knife through his throat. He convulsed on the floor, coughing blood. Then Peiyu's cold, hoarse voice sounded. "I have not breathed my last, yet all of you are already rushing to seek death." Peiyu lifted me from the floor and drew me into his arms with one hand. Beside my ear, he whispered, "Hold on to me. Do not look." Zhao Xia took a step back, her face pale as she looked at Peiyu. Gritting her teeth, she said, "You, Xu Zhao Zhao, fornicated with another man. I only wanted to have her examined for your sake. How could a woman like her ever be worthy of you?" Holding me in one arm and a saber in the other, Peiyu leveled the blade at Zhao Xia's face. "Who gave you the right to call me you?" With one stroke, he cut down the palace maid beside Zhao Xia. Blood splattered Zhao Xia from head to toe. Covering her mouth, she finally showed true fear of Peiyu. Peiyu smiled at her. "Would your highness care to guess whether this subject dares cut you down?" Zhao Xia kept backing away. "Madman." She turned and stumbled outside. "Madman." After Zhao Xia left, Peiyu threw aside his saber and sat quietly beneath a tree with me in his arms. After a long while, he lightly patted my back, sighed, and tried awkwardly to soothe me. "Stop trembling, do not be afraid. The bad people have gone." I bit down on his shoulder. Peiyu's muscles tensed for a moment, then relaxed again. After thinking, he repeated, "Do not be afraid." When there is a chance, I will teach you how to kill. What feeble comfort despite his injured body. Peiyu did not allow it to delay the wedding. Still less did he allow it to delay the wedding night. Considerate of his injuries, I pressed a hand to his chest that night and said, "Why don't we forget it? We have all the time in the world." "Forget it," Peiyu's expression chilled. "Do you despise me?" I pressed my lips together. "Your wounds have not healed." Peiyu raised a brow, pulled free his jade belt, and advanced on me step by step. "They will not interfere." Peiyu was definitely not forcing himself. I lay on the bed sobbing and trembling until he teased several cries of "you" from me before carrying me away to wash. Having gotten his way, Peiyu still mocked me. Useless. I angrily raked my nails across him. Peiyu did not get angry. With his head lowered, he washed me in an unhurried manner. Nestled against his chest, I lightly touched the old vicious scar before me. Just before drifting to sleep, I asked drowsily, "Peiyu, did it hurt?" When I woke the next morning, the space beside me was empty. The attending maid said Peiyu had entered the palace at dawn. I went to the front hall to serve tea. Peiyu's parents had died young. Above him there were only several elder brothers and their wives. The eldest brother was Peishu's father, Peiyi. An accident had crippled his leg years ago, and he had withdrawn into despondency and ceased managing affairs. The person who now ruled the household was my mother-in-law in my previous life, and my eldest sister-in-law in this one, the first Madame Pei, in my previous life. I had entered the family under dishonorable circumstances. The first Madame disliked me and made life difficult in countless ways. I had thought this life would be different, but when hot tea spilled over my hand, I understood that some people hated you regardless of who you were. The first Madame deliberately knocked over the tea. After an exclamation, her palm struck my face. As expected of someone from a backwater, you cannot even carry a cup of tea steadily. How did your mother teach you? Now that you have entered the Pei family's gates, you are a woman of the Pei family. Today's slap was to teach you proper conduct if you have any sense. You should be grateful since your mother failed to teach you certain rules. Naturally, I must do so, lest you disgrace the Pei family one day. I endured the pain in my face and clenched my teeth. I knew the first Madam. If I did not endure today's slap, she would devise even more ways to torment me later. In my previous life, I had failed to swallow that momentary anger and talked back. Later, the first Madam tormented me until I became gravely ill and never recovered. If I endured it now, I could always find a way to reclaim the debt later. "Zhao, are you a stuffed bun?" A slightly cold voice suddenly sounded behind me. While I stood stunned, Peiyu had already reached my side. He clasped my arm, pulled me from the floor, then bent to brush the dust from the hem of my skirt. The first Madam's fourth brother caught on her lips, neither spoken nor swallowed. The room fell silent. Once Peiyu had brushed away the dust, he straightened, pinched my face, and examined it for a long while. Softly, he asked, "Does it hurt?" Before so many people, I could not bring myself to say it did. When I pinch your face even slightly hard, you cry out in pain. Yet now someone has struck you like this, and you do not make a sound. Peiyu gave a cold laugh. "Zhao, who taught you to be such a coward?" His voice deepened, hit her back. My eyes widened as I stared at Peiyu. Had he gone mad? That was his own eldest sister-in-law. The first Madam's face flushed red with anger. "Peiyu, do you no longer recognize rank and seniority?" "Rank and seniority." Peiyu tilted his head, his airy gaze settling on the first Madam. "By rank, my wife stands above you, and you stand below her." He took a rolled imperial edict from his robe. His Majesty personally granted Zhao the third-rank title of Honored Lady. "Eldest sister-in-law, you assaulted a titled lady. Even if your younger brother sent you to prison today, no one could find fault with it. When had he asked for a third-rank title on my behalf? Had he rushed into the palace today to request an edict for me? Before I could think further, Peiyu called, "Zhao, I told you to hit her back. What are you waiting for?" The first Madam roared, "You dare." Peiyu stood aside with folded arms, his gaze bearing heavily on me. I clenched my fist and walked step by step to the first Madam, then raised my hand and slapped her hard. Across 2 lives, this hatred could not be appeased. I raised my hand again, but the slap did not land on the first madam's face. Pei Shu rushed in from outside and stepped in front of his mother. The heavy slap struck his face. My blow snapped Pei Shu's head to one side. Hoarsely he asked, "Has that eased your anger? If not, strike me again. I will not dodge." I flexed my numb hand, swung my arm back, and slapped Pei Shu hard once more. If he had not stood by with cold eyes in my previous life, how could I ever have been bullied so cruelly? The first madam stared for a moment, then shrieked, "Bitch, you dare strike my son. I will tear you apart." Pei Shu desperately restrained his mother. His gaze flicked across Pei Yu and fixed on me, crimson regret nearly tearing through his eyes. "Let her strike me. I owe her." "Zhao Zhao, I am sorry. Back then, I did not stand on your side. I did not protect you. Of course he owed me. As hateful as the first madam was, the person who allowed her to torment me was Pei Shu, who watched with cold indifference. The larger the household, the more keenly the servants read people's attitudes. A wife despised by her husband ranked beneath even a maid, and Pei Shu understood only now, only after seeing Pei Yu stand before me, did he understand how wretchedly he had behaved in his previous life. "You addressed her incorrectly, dear nephew." A throwing knife skimmed past Pei Shu's cheek, leaving a bloody cut. The first madam fell silent in terror. Pei Yu came closer, reached out to wipe the blood from Pei Shu's face and said softly, "You must call her aunt. If you make that mistake again, your uncle will not forgive you." Having suffered a setback at my hands, the first madam was naturally unwilling to accept defeat. In her capacity as eldest sister-in-law, she devised every possible way to stuff women into Pei Yu's courtyard and disgust me. When Pei Yu returned from court and saw the courtyard full of beauties, he asked where they had come from. I answered honestly, "The first madam sent them." Pei Yu narrowed his eyes. "She sent them, so you accepted them." I shrank under his unnerving stare and stammered, "What if there is one you like?" "One I like," Pei Yu scoffed and said with biting sarcasm. "How generous of you." That night, Pei Yu called for fresh water 3 times. When morning came, he played with my fingers and praised the beauty of the woman named Yuan. I tried to endure it, but still said, "Her name is Chuan." Pei Yu's hand paused. He lifted his eyes and glanced at me. "Then have her change it to Yuan." Because Pei Yu had given Yuan a new name, she became much more attentive. I had no interest in becoming trapped in household rivalries. I was busy using my betrothal gifts to establish shops in the capital, and the daily revenue filled me with delight. With money, I would still have a place to go even if we separated one day. I would not end up as miserable as I had in my previous life. I calculated accounts in my room while Yuan danced in the courtyard and Pei Yu sat beneath a tree, propping up his head as he played the zither. Played the zither was a charitable description. Bored senseless, he rested his head on one hand and occasionally plucked a string. Each thrum startled a tree full of birds into flight. Even Yuan's dance fell out of rhythm. Pei Yu told Yuan, "A saber makes the same sound when it strikes human bone. Do you like it?" Yuan's face went bloodless with fear, and Pei Yu propped up his head and laughed. A few days later, Yuan was poisoned, and all the evidence pointed to me. The first madam came to uphold justice. She said I could not tolerate others, that jealousy had stripped me of virtue, and sentenced me to kneel in the ancestral hall for 3 days. The first madam had always been skilled at inventing charges against people. Pei Yu and Pei Shu returned just as the household guards came to seize me. "Stop." Pei Shu rushed forward and shielded me. "Mother, even if Zhao's aunt has done wrong, she does not deserve such severe punishment. If the principal wife is punished so harshly today because of a concubine, how will she command respect in the household in the future?" I glanced at Pei Shu, so he did know that when the principal wife was punished, she could no longer command authority in the inner household. He had always understood. In our previous life, he simply had not cared. The first madam's face turned scarlet with anger. "Pei Shu, affairs of the inner household are not yours to interfere in." Pointing at me, she ordered, "Seize her, mother." I lowered my head, my thoughts nowhere near the clamoring mother and son before me. I only wanted to know what Pei Yu would think. He had indulged Yuan considerably of late, accompanying her dance with his zither. Presumably there was some affection between them. If he did not believe me, I could take the perfect opportunity to separate from him. As I thought, a chill ran down my back. I looked up and met Peiyu's dark gaze. In the next instant, he looked away and walked toward Yuan, who was being supported by a maid. He lifted her face with the tip of his riding crop. "You say my wife poisoned you." Yuan's lips were pale and her eyes glistened with tears. "My lord, Yuan does not know what she did wrong. Answer my question, did my wife poison you or not?" Yuan opened her mouth. "She did." Peiyu smiled, seized her by the throat, and asked again, "You should know that I hate being treated like a fool. I will ask once more, did my wife poison you or not?" Terror appeared on Yuan's face. "Number, she did not. It was me, I framed the madam. It was the first madam told me to." Peiyu was silent for a moment, then scoffed. "Useless thing." In the next instant, Yuan died in his hand. Peiyu threw the corpse to the ground, took out a handkerchief and wiped his hands. Lowering his eyes, he murmured, "I would have been happier if she truly had poisoned you." The first madam's face was white, staring at the corpse. She collapsed into her chair. Peiyu looked blankly at me, then slowly shifted his gaze to his mother. His eyes abruptly reddened. In a hoarse voice, he demanded, "Mother, why would you do this?" In my previous life, such false accusations had been countless. Peiyu had never believed me once or protected me once. However desperately I begged and defended myself, he always stood on someone else's side and coldly pronounced me guilty. A single leaf had obscured his eyes, hiding a mountain from view. Peiyu was not stupid. Now that the leaf had been brushed aside, he could understand many things. He would understand how, in our previous life, he and those women had joined forces to crush me to death. He would understand my resentment with increasing clarity and know that there could never be anything between us again. Peiyu closed his eyes and clutched his chest. Suddenly, he coughed up a mouthful of blood. Before he fell, his gaze turned to me. He opened his mouth but ultimately said nothing. Only a single clear tear ran down his face. The first madam dropped to her knees and screamed in anguish. "My son!" Amid the first madam's piercing cries, Peiyu hooked a hand into my collar and dragged me away. He walked so quickly that I nearly flew along in his grip. Uncomfortable, I said, "Peiyu, slow down. I cannot keep up." The moment the words left my mouth, Peiyu stopped abruptly. My forehead slammed into his back. Tears sprang to my eyes from the pain, and I crouched down, clutching my brow. Peiyu watched me for a long moment, then folded his arms and crouched down too. "Xu Jiao Jiao, I was standing right behind you. Why did you not look at me? Since you were wronged, why did you not speak? What were you thinking?" Peiyu leaned closer and said darkly, "Were you waiting for me to accuse you unjustly so you could use it as an excuse to make me divorce you?" My head snapped up, my eyes wide. How did he know? Could he truly be the king of hell, able to read people's hearts? Peiyu saw through me at once and thoughtfully exclaimed, "I command the imperial prison. Pull out any criminal from inside and his schemes will be 100 times more complex than yours. I can see guilt or innocence at a glance. Do not play tricks just now. Were you thinking of separating from me or not?" I swallowed. Although Peiyu's expression was terrifying, I did not seem particularly frightened. I even had the nerve to say, "If I tell the truth, can you promise not to kill me?" When he said he would twist someone's neck, he twisted it. Before killing someone, he never gave so much as a warning. Peiyu laughed in exasperation. He subdued his temper and still asked patiently, "Why do you want to separate? Do I treat you poorly?" I shook my head. He treated me very well. Broad shoulders, a narrow waist, and long legs, and excellent strength. He was simply marvelous. "Then it is strange. I treat you this well. Yet why do you still not dare fight for anything? Why do you only think of retreating?" I had no answer. It was not that I had never fought. I had simply never won. In my previous life, I wanted too much and fought until my entire body was covered in wounds. In this life, I only wanted to live. Everything else could be abandoned when necessary. My life mattered most. Peiyu reached out and lifted my face. "Do you think that if you never fight or compete, others will consider you virtuous and respect you? They will only think you weak and easy to bully." Then they will keep pressing for more until they devour you completely, Xu Zhao Zhao. You are a titled lady and the principal wife I married with half my fortune. Even if you commit murder and arson, I can shield you. What are you afraid of? He sighed, pinched my face, and leaned closer. My wife, show some spirit. Do not make me worry whether someone is bullying you while I am outside cutting people down. I looked at Pei Yu and slowly covered my heart. Be still, dead heart. Stop beating. What if he is only coaxing you? How could life possibly be the same? No matter whom one shared it with, Pei Yu taught me to endure. Pei Yu taught me to fight. When Pei Yu hurried back, his official assignment was not yet complete. After escorting me to the courtyard, he rushed to leave again. Before going, he told me, if my wife does not deal with those demons and monsters in the courtyard, I will. I hurriedly took some silver and released all the concubines in the courtyard. If they waited for Pei Yu to deal with them, most would not survive. Pei Yu fell gravely ill and remained unconscious for 3 days. In his delirium, tears streamed down his face as he called my name. The first madam aged overnight. She knelt outside my courtyard and begged me to visit. Pei Yu ignored everything. I had every servant who gossiped in the courtyard beaten with boards and driven from the residence. After that, everyone in the household treated me with considerably more respect. Pei Yu did not return home for 3 days. On the 3rd night, the embroidered uniform guard quietly carried him through the gates. The thick stench of blood in the air foretold disaster. Pei Yu wore black, so nothing could be seen. I stumbled to his side and came away with a hand covered in blood. How grave must the wound be to soak through his clothes? Pei Yu lay motionless on the ground, his breathing faint. My hands trembling, I used a maid for support and stood, murmuring, "A physician." "Go summon a physician," the maid said. "All the physicians are with the eldest branch." Pei Yu's high fever had not broken. Every capable physician in the capital had been gathered there over the past several days. With reddened eyes, I roared, "Go take them." As the maid started to leave, I caught her. "I will go with you." Pei Yu's fever had not abated, and the first madam refused to release anyone. I had no desire to waste words with her. I forced my way inside with the household guards, and ignoring the first madam's shrieks and sobs, ordered them to take every physician away. As I left, I heard Pei Yu's hoarse voice behind me, "Zhao Zhao. Did you come to see me?" The first madam roared. "She did not come to see you. She came to steal the physicians, keeping you alive." Pei Yu fell silent, then asked, "You are taking my physicians to save Pei Yu?" He leaned over the side of the bed, gripping the quilt, his eyes crimson. "What about me? Zhao Zhao, what about me?" I did not look back. My mind held only Pei Yu. Once my husband has fully recovered, I will naturally send these physicians back. I do not think another short delay will make any difference to you. Wait. Pei Yu coughed twice, leaned over the edge of the bed, and vomited a great mouthful of blood. Behind me came the first madam's furious curse. "You vicious woman, I curse you to die a horrible death." A horrible death. Not in this life. Pei Yu's injuries were grave. He remained unconscious for 2 days without waking. On the 3rd day, the Grand Princess arrived with an imperial physician and told me yesterday the Chancellor's estate was confiscated. The current Chancellor, Zhao Hui, was Zhao Xia's father. Their crimes were so grave that 6 clans were implicated and executed. Zhao Xia was ordered to take her own life. The evidence was submitted by the embroidered uniform guard. My hand trembled around my teacup. The Grand Princess glanced at the unconscious Pei Yu on the bed and sighed. His Majesty had long intended to punish the Zhao family, but the Chancellor's influence had put down tangled roots over the years. Pei Yu was too impatient. Had he waited a little longer and planned more carefully, he would not have needed to lose half his life this time. He was never a man so lacking in composure. After seeing the Grand Princess off, I sat at Pei Yu's bedside for a long time. I stared blankly at his face and murmured, "Pei Yu, why did you go this far?" No one answered me. I had a dream. I dreamed of the day I was buried in my previous life. It was the 3rd month of late spring, and the poplar blossoms had all fallen. The funeral procession stretched on for a great distance. Pei Yu walked with one hand on the coffin, From the burial to the carving of the gravestone, Peiyu never appeared. Later, the crowd dispersed. I sat atop my own grave and waited. I did not know what I was waiting for, but I felt someone else would come. Only after the sunset's last glow faded did a tall figure emerge from the gathering twilight. I had never seen Peiyu wear white. Across 2 lives, his clothes had always been either red or black. Peiyu once said those colors made killing more convenient. But that day his hair hung loose and he wore white. Avoiding the noisy crowd, he came to my grave. His long, pale fingers traced the inscription and came to rest on the words, Tomb of Lady Shu, wife of Pei Shu. His fingertip rubbed against the rough grooves until it bled. He drew a dagger and, stroke by stroke, erased the words wife of Pei Shu. The blade scraped over the stone. Peiyu's eyes remained lowered as he carved for a long time. I moved closer to look and stood frozen in place. A torrent of bitterness and grievance surged through me, as though a floodgate had opened. Though I was only a soul, I felt the long-forgotten flutter of my heart, as though it would set my spirit aflame. 5 words were carved on the gravestone. The tomb of Shu Zhaozhao. Not someone's wife. Not Lady Shu Zhaozhao. Peiyu sheathed the dagger and caressed those 3 characters as though touching a lover. He said only, "Rest easy, Nanan. I will not let you die in vain." Nanan was my childhood name. Even Pei Shu did not know it. When Peiyu left, he placed a stack of walnut pastries from Shu's Nanjai bakery before the gravestone. My soul followed Peiyu and watched him plot step by step. In the 2nd year after my death, the Zhao estate was confiscated. 7 clans were executed, and Zhao Xia died by 1,000 cuts. Peiyu was the executioner. 5 years later, illness forced Peiyu to leave office. Step by step, kneeling on every stair, he climbed Lingwu Mountain. A venerable monk asked what he sought. Peiyu lowered his eyes. A smooth next life for an old friend. Who is this old friend? Shu Zhaozhao of Shu, Shu Zhaozhao. Someone called my name. The dream shattered. I opened my eyes to Peiyu's pale face. He wiped a tear from the corner of my eye and asked, "Was someone bullying you even in your dreams?" I shook my head and sniffed. "No one was bullying me." Taking his hand, I said, "Peiyu, no one dares bully me anymore." Peiyu had begged this life for me with 3,500 kneelings. How could I dare live anything but well? Peiyu woke, but his injuries were too grave, and he remained bedridden for a long time. Leaning beside his bed, I told him how heroically I had abducted those physicians for him. Peiyu praised me with complete sincerity. "That is precisely what you should have done." He even improved my strategy, but since the household guards were already storming inside, there would have been no harm in beating anyone who spoke filth along the way. "She is your eldest sister-in-law, after all." Peiyu raised a brow. "What of it? Can she not be beaten?" Peiyu's injuries were so grave that they left him with lasting damage. He gasped after 5 steps and coughed after 3, unable to do without someone beside him for even a moment. The moment he could walk, someone from the embroidered uniform guard came to summon him. Furious, I chased the man away with a broom, then stood with my hands on my hips and cursed for a long while. Still unsatisfied. Peiyu had not even fully recovered, yet they were already pressing him to return to work, treating him as anything but human. Peiyu leaned against the doorframe, peeling tangerines, feeding me one segment after another. "Hands on my hips," I cursed. "That damned embroidered uniform guard. Do they have no one else alive?" "Chew, chew, chew. You are this badly injured, yet they still rush you back to work. Do they think you are made of iron?" "Chew, chew, chew. If they dare come again, I..." "Chew, chew, chew, chew. Stop feeding me." Peiyu leaned against my shoulder and chuckled. "My wife, how fierce you are." Winter arrived, but Peiyu's health still had not greatly improved. Meanwhile, that old emperor pestered him every few days to return to work. Peiyu submitted his resignation 3 times, and each vanished without a trace. Later, Peiyu went to the palace, coughed up blood, and fainted there. Only after I ran to the central palace gates and wept did the emperor feel guilty enough to release him. I wanted to take Peiyu back to Shu, I told him. Even winter is warm in Shu. It is so much better than the capital. Your injuries cannot endure the cold. And I... Peiyu stopped my endless sales pitch, brushing his lips against mine. He said, "Shu Zhao Zhao, I will return to Shu with you." I would take Peiyu back to Shu and show mother the husband I had chosen. He did not ask me to be virtuous and gentle. He did not ask me to be meek and sweet. He wanted me to fight, to seize what I wanted, and to suffer no bullying. He wanted me to live freely and joyfully, with smooth roads all my life. Peiyu's extra, when I was 22, official business took me to Shu, where I remained for a time. To conceal my identity, I became a stable hand at the Marquis of Guangling's residence. The Marquis of Guangling's legitimate daughter was named Shu Zhaojia, with the childhood name Nanan. She had studied the feminine virtues from childhood. The Marchioness taught her using the same methods of discipline favored in the capital. Shu Zhaojia learned very well, just as well as the dignified and reserved noble young ladies of the capital, and she was just as dull. If one overlooked the way she secretly threatened me into teaching her to ride, my work involved murder and arson. Sometimes, if I was careless, I left traces. The first person in the Marquis's residence to notice something amiss about me was the 14-year-old Shu Zhaojia. That day, I returned to the residence wounded and ran straight into Shu Zhaojia, who had sneaked out in the middle of the night to eat a chicken leg to preserve her figure. The Marchioness did not allow her to eat too much. During the day, she was very obedient. At night, she had to devise her own solutions. Our eyes met. Shu Zhaojia widened her eyes and said, "You are that very impressive stable hand." By impressive, she probably meant that I had tamed a fierce horse from the western regions. I ignored her and left quickly. I thought about it all night and could not understand how the little girl had recognized me when I had remained thoroughly covered from beginning to end. Shu Zhaojia thought she had found something to use against me. Though she smelled blood, she did not flee as far as possible. Instead, she came closer and threatened me. "I know the person that night was you." While I considered whether to kill her, Shu Zhao said, "Unless you teach me to ride, I will expose you to father." Never mind, she only wanted to ride a pony. What had she done wrong? Shu Zhaojia could recite the admonitions for women perfectly, yet followed not a single rule in it. Believing her threats had worked on me, Shu Zhaojia grew increasingly demanding. Later, she even dared block my path at night, and insist that I bring her walnut pastries from Nanchai when I returned. I scoffed at the idea. I was an imperial official whose trade was human heads. Why would I make a special journey to the north of the city to buy some damned walnut pastries for her? Shu Zhaojia waited for her walnut pastries outside my shabby room. Absurdly, I truly did buy them. I even waited in line for half an hour. I watched Shu Zhaojia happily munch her walnut pastries and wondered maliciously whether she could still swallow them if she heard of my fearsome reputation in the capital. When I was recalled to the capital, I left too hastily. I kept feeling as though something was missing later. I heard a street vendor calling out walnut pastries and remembered. I had forgotten to say goodbye to Shu Zhaojia. I lived my days licking blood from the edge of a blade. Days Shu Zhaojia, who sat beneath the eaves eating walnut pastries, had never seen. Then let Shu Zhaojia remain in Shu, reciting her admonitions for women and occasionally sneaking a walnut pastry. That, too, would count as a perfect ending. But Shu Zhaojia came to the capital. When she arrived, I was away in the western regions on official business. By the time I returned, she had become Pei Shu's wife, my niece-in-law. Shu Zhaojia no longer wanted to ride horses or eat walnut pastries. She began forcing the admonitions for women she had memorized onto herself, confining herself within a rigid square. She was trying hard to learn how to be Pei Shu's wife, taking a knife in her own hand. She cut away every branch of herself that failed to conform. For one moment, I wanted to kill that version of Shu Zhaojia. Rather than let her cut herself apart stroke by stroke, I might as well have given her a quick death, but it was only a moment. I had killed countless people, yet I could not bring myself to harm this ordinary young woman alone. I did not know what to do with Shu Zhaojia. I became even more violent and even busier, traveling north and south across the realm, until I heard the news of Shu Zhaojia's death. At that moment, my heart died too. Alongside the numbness, there was an unexpected sense of relief. Shu Zhaojia was finally free. I altered Shu Zhaojia's gravestone. I carved her name into it. I hope she still remembered her name. I hope she still liked Nanjai's walnut pastries. Later, I climbed Lingwu Mountain. I prayed for Xu Zhaozhao to have a smooth next life. Later still, I returned to Xu Zhaozhao's 18th year. I hurried back from the western regions to the capital and reached the palace banquet that would decide the fate of half Xu Zhao's life. In the covered corridor, I gathered her panicked form into my arms. If heaven will not protect you, then I will.